Okay. This meeting of the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Here.
Freeholder Johnson. Here. Freeholder Luciano.
Here.
Freeholder Mercado.
Here.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Here.
Freeholder Sebo.
Here.
Freeholder Freeholder President Gill.
Here. Now, shall we please stand for salutes?
I've got 3 people we can't do.
I'm going to ask Vice President Richardson to please lead us in the salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I ask that we please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have before me certification from the clerk that this meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. At this point in the meeting, I'm going to ask our District 2 Freeholder, Vice President Wayne Richardson, who represents the great township of Maplewood on the Freeholder Board, to offer greetings on behalf of the Board, and Freeholder also to introduce any Maplewood elected officials who are here with us tonight, and also to invite them to make whatever remarks they would like.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Welcome, Maplewood. We're happy to be here again. You know, we come here as we rotate to various cities and municipalities that we serve in and who we represent. We're happy to be in Maplewood again this year. Thank you for allowing us to have our freeholder meeting here again. And I do see our Honorable Mayor Victor Luca is in the audience, and Councilman Dean Daffis. If and Councilwoman Nancy. Yes, that's her. Mayor, if you would like to come up and, you know, say a few remarks, we'd appreciate it. And thanks again for having us in the great township of Maplewood.
So thanks and welcome, Mr. President, freeholders. Welcome to Maplewood. I would like to say a few things, but I just want to say something first. A little discomforting. I know you have the sheriff's officers in the back, and they're here to maintain order and tranquility. But they brought with them a bunch of those plastic handcuffs. And I think that's appropriate. They need to have their tools, but they have them displayed out there on the bench in the back. I think that's just bad form. Just as an inclusive and welcoming community, we try not to send messages which discourage people from exercising their full rights as residents and citizens in our country. So, I got a few things I want to say. First, I want to just reintroduce our Township Committeewoman Nancy Adams and Township Committeeman Dean Daffis. And the reason is because both of them were instrumental in getting approvals of resolution by the Maplewood Township Committee. Ms. Adams was a leader in getting a resolution calling on the freeholders not to take any further action on the Turtleback Zoo until a master plan is made public, vetted by the public, approved by you. So I just want to say again that we think that's an important thing. She provided the leadership on that, and we think that that's critical before we keep spending more resources and impacting the reservation. You know, we're not going back. We're not making more reservation land. So before you spend that money and take action up there, we would like you to really get that master plan fixed. And Committeeman Daffis was the leader in getting us to look at the detention center in Newark. And we know that you're addressing this in a number of ways. We think the ordinance that you're putting forth addresses a number of the concerns that we have. The ordinance to set up the committee that's going to be an oversight committee, we think that's critical. But ultimately, we think that the detention center, it should be phased out. This is a very difficult time that we live in right now. We have a president who is anti-immigrant, anti-people of color, and what may have worked in the past when we had a government that was working together and the motives that were used to begin this process of taking detainees, it's no longer justified and can't be sustained. So we applaud you all for taking the action, Mr. President, for pushing that through, get that oversight committee set up. But let's get on the track for a long range of phasing out that detention center. So I wanted to say those two things. I'm not sure what other mayors do, if they just say hello and welcome, but I couldn't, some of you know me and some of you know that I've been speaking to power for a long time, so I couldn't pass this up. But
I don't think anyone was expecting just that, Mayor.
Thank you. I do want to get a little more mundane about, want to thank you for passing the resolution fixing up Irvington Avenue. Very important for our One Maplewood approach to civic life here. We want to make sure all of Maplewood feels connected, and we have honestly not paid as much attention to Irvington Avenue as we should have over the years, so your work there and in phase 1 and phase 2 of fixing up Irvington Avenue is going to be critical. And we're waiting for a traffic light at Valley and South Pearson. Help us out. I know the administration's working on it. Everything was included in that big package. There was some problems with the bids. So anyway, we've passed the season, but we really need that light for next year. So again, let me welcome you to Maplewood. Have a great meeting. Unfortunately, I have to run to another meeting. I think we all have to run to another meeting, but we leave you in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other members of the Township Committee? Do you want to open it up to the other members of the Township Committee that are here?
Yeah, sure. Are there any other Township Committee folks here who would like to say something? You got it. Okay, thanks, Nick. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Just want to echo the comments of my colleague, Vice President Richardson. I want to thank the mayor, the members of the Township Committee who are here, for having us, for hosting us, and for your comments. That is the purpose of bringing county government on the road, so to speak, so we can hear directly from our elected leaders, so we can interact directly with our elected leaders. But we can't do that without you being gracious enough to allow us to bring our meeting. So it's not something that I know I can speak on behalf of all my colleagues that we take for granted, and we sincerely thank you for that. And we would not expect anything different, Mayor, and that's the way it should be, in my opinion. That's what we're here for. So, so thank you, and thank you for your service. Madam Clerk, are there any transcripts to be approved?
Mr. President, there are none.
Madam Clerk, are there any topics of discussion?
Mr. President, there are none.
Okay, let's move to the public comment session. Tonight's meeting is a combined conference board meeting. We will vote on every item on the agenda. So if there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any issue, whether or not it's on the agenda, you'll have one opportunity to speak. Please come to the microphone, state your name and affiliation for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Mr. President, may I have an opportunity for point of clarification?
Sure, Madam Clerk, and I'm going to turn the meeting at this point for a point of clarification from our clerk, which I think is relevant to our public comment session. So, Madam Clerk.
On the agenda, I know many of you may be here for ordinance O-2019-0017, ordinance establishing an Essex County Correctional Facility Civilian Task Force for the public hearing. The President felt that it was really important and we'll go through the formal process of adjourning this public hearing and scheduled vote for December the 11th. He decided to make that decision because of the tremendous amount of feedback that we received from our constituents and also from other organizations that are involved in that facility. So please feel free to use the public comment session that we're about to begin to make your comments about any topic or subject, including the ordinance. Is there anything else I should add, Mr. President?
No, thank you, Madam Clerk. I think our council, is there anything else we need to?
I just wanted to be clear that the public comment session on the ordinance itself will remain open when it's adjourned to the next meeting, and interested members of the public or anybody will have an opportunity to speak on that ordinance at that time, at the next meeting in December.
So just to follow up then, meaning that if you would like to speak on that ordinance, you need to speak during this portion of the meeting. The ordinance will still be on the agenda, but since we are, there was some, I think, misinformation that I want to make sure that people understand. We are not withdrawing the ordinance. We still plan to vote on this ordinance at our next meeting, which will be on the December 11th. We have taken a tremendous amount of feedback, which is great, on the ordinance, so we're still going through the review process to strengthen it and make what I think is a very good ordinance even stronger. But there is, if you look at the agenda tonight, it's listed as a separate item, and for public comment on that item, I just want to make sure that anyone who came to speak on this item knows that now is the time to speak regarding that ordinance. So thank you for indulging us on that issue. And with that, Madam Clerk, we can start the public comment portion of the meeting.
Hi there. My name is Audrey Winkler. I'm the Executive Director of Jesby House. I live in South Orange, 25 Glenside Road. I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you all. We are an organization, a nonprofit organization, primarily based in South Orange.
Hold on one moment. Can you check to see if her mic is on?
Not very helpful. Do I need to move it closer? Can I do that? Oh. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, and start from the beginning.
Okay. Great. Hi there. I'm Audrey Winkler. I'm the Executive Director of Jesby House. We're an organization primarily based in South Orange with 250 clients. We serve adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We provide a wide range of programs, including residential programs, behavioral services, vocational programs. We have the largest Special Olympics program in Essex County. And we are here today to talk to you about a traffic issue, primarily about pedestrian safety. I know that your traffic engineers work very hard, but I think maybe vehicular efficiency in this case really needs to be put on the back burner. Pedestrian safety is very important. We want to suggest that you can pilot a program on the intersection of Irvington and Prospect Street and put in a scramble. For those of you that aren't familiar with that term, a scramble is where the entire intersection freezes at the lights, and it allows our clients who have physical and developmental disabilities to cross the streets. Not just for our clients, but for seniors, for young parents with strollers. It's really a very difficult intersection. 26 accidents already have been there, and we're hoping that your traffic engineers will take a very hard look at this intersection and pilot the Scramble program. This Scramble format has been used in many, many cities across the country, including New Jersey, and has greatly improved pedestrian safety. Let me just make sure. Oh, I did want to mention that this is a no-cost solution, so we're not asking for anybody to dip into their already designated budgets. It's really just a matter of retiming the lights, maybe a couple signs, but retiming the lights so that that one intersection freezes and allows everyone, you can even cross diagonally, because that's the shortest way to get across the street. So I'm hoping that you consider this. We have many of our clients here who also will be speaking to you this evening about pedestrian safety. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Jody Canner, and I'm one of the Jusby House clients, and I've had experiences crossing the street where cars were turning off of Irvington Avenue onto Prospect Street, and it's very difficult for me to get across, and I've had to wait several minutes before I was able to cross, and some of my other clients have difficulty crossing that same intersection. And I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider what Audrey was talking about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Krantz, and I'm also a Jusby House client. I live in the Concord 177 Irvington Avenue in South Orange. I also want to talk to you guys about the Scramble Crosswalk because I also drive and I also walk that intersection, and it is very hard to do because the light really isn't effective at all. I've seen many cars get stuck in the middle of it, where people get stuck on the crosswalks themselves, so that we can't cross it at all. The Scramble Crosswalk would make it easier for us to cross the intersection, because during rush hour, again, it's not really effective at all. There's also an issue with Prospect and South Orange. There is no crosswalking sign at all, and there's no way to know when to cross or not, because cars don't stop. It's basically become a free-for-all in that section of Prospect and Irvington and South Orange. It's also become a free-for-all on Valley Street as well, because cars don't stop. They really don't stop. So I think, I think everybody here should take a look at pedestrian safety. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise Reckham. I'm the vice president, or one of the vice presidents, actually, of the Jusby Board, and I'm also a resident of South Orange. According to the National Complete Streets Coalition, their 2019 report, Dangerous by Design, between 2008 and 2017, drivers struck and killed 49,340 people who were walking on the streets all across the United States. That is more than 13 people per day, or one person every hour and 46 minutes, killed just walking. In the past decade, the number of people struck while walking increased by 35%. Needless to say, in a walking community like ours, pedestrian safety must be a high priority. In Leonia, New Jersey, in a typical year, 3 pedestrians were struck by cars. But after a gruesome 2014 death of a pedestrian who was hit by a school bus at Fort Lee Road and Broad Avenue and dragged 70 feet, Leonia began to investigate what it could do to prevent another tragedy. In 2016, Leonia initiated a traffic scramble at the intersection, where all lights would turn red for 26 seconds to allow pedestrians to cross in every direction at the time when all cars were stopped. The result? There has not been one pedestrian-related accident since. Just this past June, Princeton initiated a traffic scramble, or as they're calling it, an exclusive pedestrian phase, EPP, as a pilot to improve pedestrian safety at a busy intersection. We are here today to advocate for this simple, cost-effective safety measure that can make South Orange a safer place to walk for our clients at Jusby House as well as for the broader community. Individuals with disabilities, especially those with mobility issues, as well as older adults, are especially at risk of being hit by a car as they cross the street. All that is required to provide our fellow citizens increased safety is to simply retime the lights so that all car movement is stopped
30
while
seconds.
people safely cross. We urge you to take this meaningful step by doing a pilot at Prospect and Irvington to improve safety in our community. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Dr. Ahadi Buglevine and I'm the president-elect for the board of Jesby House. And I'm here to support the earlier members of my Jesby family who came and spoke to you today about pedestrian safety and how important it is to our families. A lot of the problems that we've been seeing, we've been hearing about since I even started as a volunteer in 2017. I asked, what are the key concerns for the clients in terms of advocacy? And repeatedly I heard traffic, pedestrian safety, the walkways, Irvington and Prospect, South Orange Avenue. There's so many places where clients have said to me that they've almost been hit, and I'm terrified that I'm going to come here one day and say that someone was. And I don't want it to rise to that level. And when it comes down to a lot of the issues that we're talking about today, I don't think we fully understand it all until you've kind of been in someone else's shoes. We have a lot of clients who use walkers or canes or walk slower. So we can't always necessarily get across the street in the time that it is allowed because we have so many cars turning in. And I want to just point out something to you guys standing behind us. I have one of these pesky boots on. And until you've been in one of these boots and tried to hightail it across the street, you really don't realize how difficult it can be. It's almost impossible. And so I'm asking you so that you don't have to wear one of these and just can hear from us, to please do something about this. And what we're asking for is a scramble at the intersection of Irvington and Prospect. And this is, a pilot. You can see how it works and maybe consider expanding it to other areas in South Orange Avenue as well, because as I said, there are concerns. And when we spoke to different groups in the community about this issue, we also heard from seniors who said, this is a problem for us too. Senior organizations said, please tell them seniors care about this issue too. And as you all know, we do. So we want to make sure that you consider these issues today and that you think about pedestrian safety because it's extremely important. And even from a driver perspective, if you're worried about it from that point of view. As a driver, I find it sometimes difficult because people are walking and I don't want to turn into them. So it's actually more efficient for me if I know that they're going to go and then when I can make my left or my right, I truly can just go. That's actually easier for me as a driver. So I do feel like it's a situation where everyone wins and it's an easy solution to a problem that actually is risking people's lives. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me, good evening. My name is Jacqueline Herships. I'm a resident of South Orange. And I am here this evening with members of the Ethical Culture Society of Essex County. I am a vice president of the Essex Ethical, which is on the corner of Parker and Prospect, right here in town. With me is Zia Durrani, who is our president, and board member Lisa Novensky. And also we have a friend from India, Abhishek Gupta, who is here observing how we run our country. So I'm very glad to be here.
Today was a good day to see it.
Created a letter decrying the state of affairs in our nation regarding immigration. We are here tonight seeking organizations and persons in political position who wish to add their names to the growing list we have so far. At this point, we have a number of other ethical societies across the country who have signed on, and we have the beginnings of a local list, which includes South Orange Village, Maplewood Township, Mila Jacey, Peace Action, the local group, and First Friends of New Jersey. If you are interested and would like to lend your name or the name of your organization to our letter, please give me your contact information, and we will get you a copy of the letter. We also are hosting a program at the Ethical Culture Society of Essex County, once again on Prospect and Parker at the corner, on December 1st, when Executive Director of First Friends, Victor Salama, will speak on the issue. The title of the talk is called Our Hidden Shame, Immigration Detention in New Jersey. I have a copy here if anyone would like to photograph it or read it. Thank you.
My name is Mary Gallagher of Maplewood. I welcome you to our community. I'm a member of SOMA Action, and I work with New Jersey Appleseed Public Interest Law Center. I'm here to talk about voting machines. New Jersey's had a law on the books requiring paper ballots since 2005, signed by Governor Cody. That law was put on hold because of the expense.
Please speak into the mic.
Sure. Cybersecurity experts like Andrew Appel of Princeton tell us no method is perfectly secure, but the safest is hand-marked paper ballots fed into optical scanners. They're harder to tamper with, it's easier to tell if tampering has taken place, and you can do a recount with them. They're not only safer, but much cheaper, because with voters marking the ballots, you do not need as many machines. There are other kinds of machines out there that produce paper ballots, but the machine marks the ballot. And the problem with those is a lot of voters won't take the time to review the ballot because they're in a rush, or even if they do check the ballot, the names printed on it might not match what is recorded in the machine's memory or on the barcode that's used to tabulate the votes. And with many of these machines, the ballot goes back into the machine after it's reviewed, and the machine could add something or change something. And you'd have no way to tell. You've already signed off on this ballot. I'm heartened that we've made progress on the issue. Last week on Election Day, some voters in Montclair got to test hand-marked paper ballots and optical scanners. It's tempting to relax a bit now, but we can't for two reasons. First, as far as I know, the final decision has not yet been made on what system to buy. Two other counties that tested new machines last week, Hunterdon and Morris, tested machine-marked paper ballot systems, and Union County recently replaced its machines with that inferior type of system. That makes me worried because New Jersey counties tend to buy the same voting equipment. 17 out of 21, including Essex, currently use the AVC Advantage, and Union used to be the 18th out of 21. We're on the right track now here in Essex, but it's not yet a done deal. We need to make sure we don't make the same mistake as Union or that Hunterdon and Morris seem ready to make. We've waited a long time for safer voting, and it will be a long time until we replace whatever voting machines we buy. So let's be sure we get it right. Reason two not to relax is the ticking clock. The 2020 election, with so much at stake, is now less than a year away, and we need to have these new machines in place by then. It seems almost every day we learn something new about Russian attempts to interfere with our democracy. Please protect our votes by acting without delay to replace our voting machines with hand-marked paper ballots and scanners. And I'd like to add my voice to the many people here tonight
20 seconds.
urging an end to the ICE contract and no amphitheater in Turtleback Field.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Foley. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, and I've spoken before, and I'm going to speak today about the detention center, which I'm sorry you guys went a long time without hearing about it, which it's had to have been a record. So, I actually wanted to start by thanking Freeholder Brendan Gill for the work that he's done here on the Oversight Committee. I think it's really commendable. I really appreciate you meeting with the public to discuss their concerns. I know that I have messaged you many times asking questions, and you've always gotten back to me really promptly, and I think you have done a wonderful job here in creating this, and I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I just also want to say that we really do appreciate you. We're not always the most appreciative group of the members of the public, but I want to say that we do appreciate the work you've done here, and I just want to thank you. And I I was looking at my notes and I realized that they are a little angry tonight because I think like a lot of people, we are angry. I'm going to try to tone it down. But I do want to say to some of the other freeholders that if you know me, if you know my activism work at all, one of the things I really care about is that people who are elected are beholden and answer to the public. And I want to say for those of you, and I'm not going to name names, if you were silent when this report first came out, if you refused to meet with your community about that, if you've turned down meetings, if you feel like your most important role as a freeholder was to protect Joe Vincenzo from us, the public, then I think you've lost your way. Your job is to protect Essex County. Your job is to protect the residents who live here, and those residents actually include the people who are in our jails, whether they are here documented or undocumented. And I would like you to actually think about, I know that there's a lot of loyalty in Essex, and I know that there's a lot of, I'm going to say beholdenness, but your duty is to us, the public. And I think sometimes to me, as someone who's been observing this for a while, that really feels lost. And I don't know if you share this or if you feel differently, but I'm going to urge you to recommit yourself to the public. And that includes the detainees. And for the Essex County Executive Office, I feel like it would be nice to hear your voices on some of this. We're seeing a lot of things come out of his office. Now that we have the ordinance in place, we're seeing him start to name people. We're sort of hearing the story that the public will have input, but we're not really seeing it. We have no transparency on how these appointments are going to be made, and we have no real clear view. I've emailed, I've asked, how can people be nominated? How can they be appointed? And I'm getting no answer that is satisfying. And I don't know what you guys feel like your role is as freeholders, but I would like to ask each one of you, and again, not just Brendan, who's been doing a lot of the work here, to sort of step up and say what you think should happen instead of just relying on us to
10 seconds.
demand. And finally, the thing that I think we are really missing from this conversation is the presence of Joe DiVincenzo himself. He has not come to these meetings, he has not answered the public, and he also is an elected official. And so I would like to ask the freeholders to call on him to have a town hall to where we could address him and he could answer our questions. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Shear. I'm from Maplewood, and I am a member of Soma Action, and I'm here to speak on two issues, but I'll keep it short on both. They're issues that I think are related. One is the 2020 census, and one is the voting machines that we use in our county. So first on the census, achieving an accurate census count is so crucial in 2020, which I'm sure you all know. Following the last census in 2010, New Jersey lost a member of the House of Representatives, along with a vote in the Electoral College. Since 1980, we have lost 3 congressional seats, from 15 down to 12 today. We rely on a complete census count to ensure that New Jersey receives its fair share of representation and funding from Washington. And working to achieve a complete count is especially imperative here in Essex County. Of the census tracts in New Jersey that traditionally have had a low self-response rate, a full 28%, over a quarter of them are in Essex County. And keep in mind that there are 21 counties in New Jersey, so we are overrepresented with hard-to-count census tracts, and it's a big issue. So it's essential that we prioritize complete count efforts here in our county. I also want to speak on the issue of voting machines, which I'm sure a few other people will be doing so tonight, and someone already has. Personally, I'm the new Democratic District Leader for Maplewood 19, so I recently got to work as a challenger for the first time last week. So I got to see the paper receipt that comes out of these voting machines and how there's no way to check if the machine works correctly or not. Because there was recently a documented case in New Jersey where the receipt that came out of the machine was inaccurate. It was proven, so we don't know if that's happening with the rest of these machines. I used to work as a statistician, and I would use stat software to crunch a lot of numbers, and we would always look back at our raw data to make sure that our coding was error-free so that the results are accurate. So in the case of the voting machines being used in Essex County right now, they don't allow us to check that the results coming out of the machines are accurate, which is imperative if we want to have fair and trustworthy elections. So we need to move to optical scanned, hand-marked paper ballots, which provide a paper trail. And another benefit of machines that use hand-marked paper ballots is that they're cheaper than the machines that the county is using right now, so they would save money. I want to thank Freeholder Gill for
30
supporting
seconds.
these new machines, bringing in these new machines to Essex County, and I urge the rest of the freeholders to do the same in time for the primary election this June. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nicole Pivnik. I'm a Maplewood resident and the Immigrant Rights Co-Chair from Soma Action. I've spoken in the past asking this board to create a civilian oversight board, and I'm here today to say thank you for taking a major step with this civilian task force ordinance. This is a necessary and important step, and I'm encouraged to see the board listening to the demands of advocates and people detained and incarcerated at the facility. I'm also frustrated. I'm frustrated on behalf of the numerous advocates who've been making suggestions on how this ordinance can be improved to ensure it is truly a meaningful action. And yet none of these suggestions have been adopted. The ordinance as written is flawed. The county has shown numerous times it is unable to police itself when it comes to the correctional facility. This has been shown by the 2 OIG reports outlining horrific conditions and continues to be demonstrated when we hear about the horrific treatment of detainees held there. To be meaningful, the task force needs to be truly independent. Community and advocacy groups should have the opportunity to submit and comment on nominations, and if these nominations are not accepted, then County Executive DiVincenzo must be required to explain why. An oversight board nominated by a county executive with a vested interest in maintaining the status quo is never going to have the trust of the community. To gain the trust of the community, the task force must operate with transparency, with all reports disclosed to the public. I'm truly appreciative of President Gill's leadership in driving this forward and his personal responses to my and others' feedback. To the other freeholders, what are you doing to ensure the task force is truly independent? Are you committed to true oversight, or are you just looking to shut us up? You owe it to the people detained and incarcerated at the facility and to all of us who care about them to make sure this is not just a rubber stamp. We care. We will be watching you, and we'll keep showing up to make sure you get this right. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kelly Quirk. I'm a Maplewood resident. I'm a leader within Soma Action. I have 3 things I want to say. First, I'm sure you've heard a lot of this, but I 100% support and believe in hand-marked paper ballots with precinct-based optical scanners. And I wrote that down, so Holly will still be friends with me. Second, I want to just reiterate my belief that, and that a lot of us have, that the civil detention of immigrants is morally wrong and should end. But third, I want to express my support for the formation of the Civil Task Force to monitor the Essex County Correctional Facility. And the fact that you're taking the time to take our feedback, I hope you take it. And I want to tell you why. And what my biggest concern is, and that is that in a few months, my brother is going to serve about 2.5 years in a federal prison. And I'm not going to have a task force to monitor that facility. But me, like other people whose family members are incarcerated, have to take care of our mothers who are worried about their sons, explain to our children that jails are not just a game we play, but a place where our loved ones live. And I got to go back and do that hard work with my family. And it's easier for me to do that. It would be easier if I could trust in the integrity of a process where you guys sat there and you said to every person who applied to be on that committee, what is your goal? Why do you want to be on this task force? And if the reason they want to be on it is not just the safety of the facility, but the dignity and humanity of everybody who is held and detained there, then maybe you move forward. But if you get the opinion that they're there to talk about facility lights, or they're there to talk about whether a policy or procedure is exactly right, then maybe they don't have the vested interest of my loved ones who are incarcerated at heart. And that's what I care about. So if you're going to do this, please do it right. Otherwise, there's really no reason to do it at all. And everyone here wants you to do it. And I want you to do it, but get it right, please. Because I would love to have the opportunity to say something to my mom, like, there's something like this in Essex County, and we could do that where my brother is. And we're probably never going to have that opportunity, and I get that. But I can't look at my neighbors whose friends are incarcerated and their loved ones who are incarcerated at ECCF and deny them an opportunity to have an actual independent oversight board where people have a vested interest. And to the last point, it's a personal one. I emailed you guys as soon as this was announced, but I really would ask you consider Bennett Zarofsky for this board. He is someone that many people in this room trust, who I personally believe
30
would have the
seconds.
vested interest of every person in that facility and their dignity and humanity at heart. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie Gordon, and I'm with the Green Party of Essex County. I want to start by saying that all the freeholders are Democrats, and the contract with ICE is not lesser evil. I have to admit, I used to think referring to the ICE contract as blood money was a bit over the top, but every week I read news that gets more and more horrific. Did you know that there are currently almost 70,000 children being held by ICE detention in the U.S.? The county executive, Joe DiVincenzo, makes the blood money connection himself, and this is an actual quote from him. While the incarceration of people is never pleasant, it does provide us with an opportunity to bring in much-needed revenue to help balance our budget. Essex County balances its budget through mass incarceration and immigrant detention. This is blood money and not benevolence. That is why in this moment it's necessary to say end the contract with ICE, and not only speak of reforming and making an unjust system more palatable. Make no mistake, the conditions at Essex County Correctional Facility do need to improve, as they've been cited by the Department of Homeland Security for things like mold, spoiled food, lack of real outdoor space, and safety violations. There have been deaths, suicides, and reports of sexual assaults by guards. A civilian oversight board is a step in the right direction, but if members are appointed by the county executive, the person who uses incarceration for profit and is overseen by his high school football buddy, judge, it's just not true accountability. It would be another half measure like the inadequate funds put forward for immigrant legal representation. It all seems like attempts to ease the pressure and bad PR than real transformative solutions, which would include locating other legitimate revenue sources and to stop profiting off of mass incarceration and immigrant detention. Speaking of revenue sources for the county, we were promised a master plan for the Turtleback Zoo by the end of the year, which is fast approaching. Attractions are continually added, and we're told of record attendance and that the zoo sustains itself, but we never really hear the numbers or the projections. We need a thoughtful plan that balances the idea of a reservation to preserve actual natural habitat, is respectful to the surrounding community, with animals that are to scale and with the space and the climate, and a future focus as zoos and with circus-like entertainment and small inadequate enclosures are really outdated and problematic. Finally, the Green Party supports voting machines that have voter-verified paper trail, which are auditable and unhackable. Voters should either directly make their selections on paper ballots that are then scanned, or use electronic machines that print their selections
30
onto
seconds.
paper ballots in plain text. We know it's going to be especially important in 2020 to make every person's vote count. We hope Essex County takes this very seriously and protects the integrity of our elections. The Green Party has been in the lead for states such as Pennsylvania to make the switch and continues to fight for accountability. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jean Lo Cicero. I'm the legal director at the ACLU of New Jersey, and I wanted to come and just make a couple brief points. First of all, the ACLU wanted to recognize and appreciate all of the effort being put into making civilian oversight a reality at the ECCF. And we're especially grateful to the Freeholder president for leading this effort and for being so responsive to the community. Community input has been essential to ensuring that the task force is effective, and we commend you all for hearing all of the voices, and it was really gratifying to hear that you're making efforts to strengthen the ordinance, so thank you. In previous public comments, concerns have been raised about how the ordinance might impact officers at the facility, and I wanted to point out that the ACLU is very sensitive to the rights of public employees, and to note that the ordinance already provides sufficient protections. Specifically, there are robust confidentiality protections for all people involved in the reviews, both detainees and officers, and that the task force may not speak to anyone without their informed consent. And there's also a provision about allowing employees to have a union rep or lawyer there. So I just wanted to point that out. And as you've heard, there's room for improvement to bolster the task force's transparency and independence. But I wanted to just note that the ordinance is a significant step and has the potential to be a model across the state with the adequate protections. And so we urge you to make these amendments before the next public meeting so that it can be adopted and be implemented as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Is it on? Then I can't see my notes. Good evening. My name is Holly Gauthier. I'm co-chair of the Soma Action Voting Rights Committee. And I'd like to say that I know there are many people here from Soma Action tonight, some of whom have and will be speaking. Perhaps they could raise, I know you don't like a lot of noise, but maybe they could raise their hands and let us know who is here from Soma Action so that you can see that we have a lot of support. Thank you. I'd like to speak tonight and ask you tonight more about the Montclair pilot project, voting project that occurred last week. First of all, I'd like to ask, I know that it was a hand-marked paper ballot with optical scanners, and the previous one had been in June with ballot marking devices. I'm asking that for the results of the evaluation that the voters gave to the county on their experience with that. And I would also like to say that with regular machines, they break down. And in fact, in my own district, the machine broke down and people had to vote provisional ballot, even though they could come in and check their name with, on the register and say they were legitimate voters. I would say that with the ballot marking machines, the same problem would occur. If the machine breaks down, machines break, we all know that the people that, when the machines break down, voters will have a problem. The other thing that has concerned me is that I have seen on internet in our towns, people saying, yeah, I had to vote provisional ballot, but you know, nobody ever counts provisional ballots. Well, that undermines our democracy, that undermines our system. I don't happen to believe that's true, but if people think that, that is not healthy or good for our democracy. Therefore, it's another reason that I support, and Soma Action supports, hand-marked paper ballots with optical scanners. And I'm asking for the results from, of the evaluation. Secondly, I would like to know exactly what Montclair Pilot Project did in terms of voter prep on that. I had spoken, did my colleague David Harris speak about the, with the county election officials about what kind of voter prep would they do so that they weren't shocked when they walked in the door. I'm not saying they should have gotten back to me, but I would like to know what kind of voter prep was made so that that will help us evaluate the actual effectiveness of that system and how it might compare with a different one, the ballot marking machine devices. Finally, I would like to point out, well, maybe finally, I would like to point out that I spoke with, last week, I spoke with somebody who's in the audience here tonight that had voted on the ballot marking devices mentioned in Union County. His comment was, well, actually, they were really a little hard to see, and many devices have something that you can look at your ballot that's not a whole lot better.
Time's up.
Than this. Time's up. I didn't get my 30 seconds.
I know. How
okay.
Mr. President, may I give
You got the
30 more
point.
seconds?
All right, never mind. I won't keep you. It's warm in here.
I'm sorry, on one issue, because I know this issue has been raised. The results of the evaluation will be made public, and I just want to put on the record for the administration, I did put a request in there, but we fully intend to make the results of the surveys that were filled out by the voters who in that precinct available to the public.
Yes, Mr. President, I'll pass that on.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Good evening. My name is David Harris. I live in South Orange. I'm the co-chair of the Voter Rights Committee of Soma Action. Tonight, I want to speak to you a little bit about leadership. And the reason I'm raising this, and the reason it occurred to me, is this past Sunday, I was invited to speak at the League of Women Voters program in Monmouth County. There were only two people on the program, Dr. Appel, Andrew Appel, who some of you have met, and myself. Dr. Appel spoke first. The program was scheduled for an hour and a half. I saw Andrew had his slides, and I said, look, man, do what you got to do. I'll tailor my talk to how much time you take. So he took an hour and 15 minutes. That was with questions, and the moderator had to cut off the questions. I want you to understand something. This was about voting machines on a Sunday afternoon in Monmouth County. They had to pull out extra chairs. This is something people care about. So I limited my talk to about a half hour, but there was another half hour of questions. What I took away from that is two things. One, people care. I characterized our voting machines as the infrastructure of our democracy. Because if they don't work, it's like riding over a bumpy road or a slippery rail. You won't get to where you want to. You don't trust getting there, and you don't believe people care. The other thing was, people really look to Essex County for leadership. What you do matters. It matters because we are viewed as more sophisticated, having the means to evaluate these machines when other counties do not. Our freeholders are viewed as being much more open than some other freeholders. For example, in Monmouth County, they were complaining to me because they moved the meeting from 7 to 5.
30 seconds.
So that people wouldn't have an opportunity to take up all your valuable time like we do. The third thing I would just say, to summarize Dr. Appel's talk, paper ballots, hand-marked paper ballots is not the same as paper backup. Paper backup, you can't see, you don't look at them. Half the people can't read them if they do look at them. Hand-marked paper ballots, you are engaged, they're accurate, they can't be hacked, and they cost less. Thank you.
My name's Ed Jones. I'm a resident of Maplewood, New Jersey. Well, New Jersey goes without saying. This morning, I suffered from my usual bout of insomnia, and occasionally it blesses me with getting me in touch with parts of myself that I normally am not in touch with. And this particular morning, perhaps thinking about speaking tonight, I thought about why was it that I was proud that I was a Democrat. I was proud that New Jersey was a largely Democratic state. I had no sense of pride that my county was a Democratic county. And I realized it's because over the last 2 years, as we, and many different groups, have been fighting to bring some kind of justice to the immigration system. And Essex County Jail being used as an adjunct to ICE's activities, to me, makes us feel like a Republican county. And for that reason, I have lost a certain amount of faith that democracy works. Because I align, rightly or wrongly, I align Democrat with democracy. I just want to speak in favor of one particular amendment to the ordinance that is before you, is being prepared for the second reading, and that is to suggest that the Civilian Oversight Task Force be required to make all reports available to the public online within 5 business days. Currently, it says it may make all reports. In order to be a fully transparent task force, this should be required. And in a similar way, the annual reports must also be made public. I think there are other amendments that are important, but this is a key one, I think, to make sure that the task force is accountable to us, the people, and not something that
30
can allow
seconds.
things to slide. And again, I did want to appreciate Freeholder Guild, your leadership in this area. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Penelope Brackett, and I'm a Maplewood resident and a member of Soma Action. I'm pleased that many of the members of Soma Action have already talked a lot about the civilian task force. It's a critical step, and I thank you for all the work that you have done to ensure that there is real civilian oversight. But I will add that I will ask that these amendments be added. I know that we have time to do that in the next coming weeks. And several people have talked about the public reporting, the importance of public reporting, and also the importance of recommendations from the community and advocacy groups. Those are essential to make sure that this is real and effective. I want to add, in addition, that a provision needs to be added that requires that all inmates are informed about the oversight group, and that there is a way for complaints to be offered, and for them to be, they understand how to contact the board to register their complaint. In addition, that the task force can issue reports to the BOCF and the county executive before ECCF has completed any internal investigations, that they can meet anytime when there is a necessity that is deemed necessary to meet. They also must have access to video and audio recordings that are made by the ECCF and be able to administer surveys. These are all parts of the process that are essential to make sure that we have an effective oversight task force. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pamela McElvin, advocating for Bellswood Park. I really must say thank you. They stepped up, the change have came about as far as the meals for the seniors. I was there today, sat there and ate a hot meal, beautiful coffee, I love it. It was great. So now, but only problem that I do have is that communication does make a difference. It changes things. And even though there's still a lot of lack of communication, but changes are being made, they don't like to talk about it, but a change have came about, and I truly appreciate all what you guys have done in that aspect. So I say thank you to you all for giving the seniors the opportunity of serving them a hot meal, a real meal, not out of a box. I thank you. No, I don't know if I mentioned this last week at the last meeting. They plan on putting a soccer field in Bellswood Park. When I seen them putting the markings there and I asked him, he said wasn't one here a few years ago. It hadn't been a soccer field as long as I remember, 15, 20 years ago. And I said, why would they want to put a soccer field there when you mostly play baseball, basketball, football? That money could go towards something else that's needed into the park. You know, but again, I say thank you, but I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Graves. I'm a member of the Voting Rights Committee of Soma Action. I live in the Tuxedo Park section of South Orange. I'm here to urge the Freeholder Board to purchase voter hand-marked paper ballots that will have optical scanners in each precinct. I would ask you to consider, when you're thinking about whether or not you want to vote to purchase machine-marked paper ballots, ask yourselves whether or not the software of those machine-marked ballots is proprietary. And if it is proprietary, the company that owns that software and that owns those machines will not give the County Board of Elections access to that software. So essentially, you will be surrendering the honesty and integrity of the vote to a private corporation. I don't think you want to do that. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Ritu Pancholi. I'm the interim acting president of Soma Action. As you can tell, the audience is mostly filled with many members of our organization. I'm extremely proud to have led this organization in the past several months. I think it shows you that the constituents care, that people in this audience care. We appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to come to Maplewood and have a hearing here. I would note a few things. Freeholder Brendan Gill, thank you for interacting with us. Thank you for listening to us. I would urge the rest of the freeholders to continue to listen to us. Our democracy in this nation is in peril, but you guys can make a difference here, right? You can listen to the people who have taken time out of bedtime routines, out of watching TV, out of whatever they could have done tonight to have expressed what they've expressed. As you can tell, there are two central issues that Soma Action members came out for. The first being that we applaud you for coming up, creating the Civilian Oversight Committee for the Essex County Correctional Center. We would urge you, though, that the simple creation of that task force is not where your job ends. You cannot just rubber stamp this committee now. There must be full transparency in what happens next. As a compliance expert who runs my company and as someone who's worked for other organizations, I can tell you that the next steps are going to be more critical to what happens. Simply creating an oversight board that's filled with people that are already part and parcel of who people want to be on that board is not enough. We, the people, ask that the people's recommendations for who should serve on that board truly be listened to and honored. As you can tell, my colleague Kelly Quirk back there had a nomination that she submitted already. I would urge you to take that seriously. When someone from the community, in a community group, sends you a recommendation, we should understand why that person's not going to be on the board. We should be able to see the minutes from the board. We should be able to understand whether or not this task force actually is doing what a task force is supposed to do. I would urge you in this time, as we enter the 2020 election cycle, your Essex County residents want to see that local government works. When the national government is not working, we need to know that right here, people care. People are listening to us. People are doing something. The second part of that is
30 seconds.
Optical paper ballots. We would urge you to consider that. Every vote's going to matter. It's clear that the research shows that what we are doing right now is not enough. I can tell you in Maplewood and South Orange, in the most recent election, we had election issues as usual. No surprise. It's 2019, and you can't cast a vote in America and know that your vote counts. We need to do more.
My name is Serge Demefak from American Friends. Before my statement, I request that you turn the clock towards me because I want to be able to track the clock. Thank you very much. I want to thank the member of the board for showing up in full presentation because we have a hard time communicating when nobody's here. And one of my goals today was to hand over actually these are the recommendations of about 14 organizations. I want to make sure that everybody gets a copy before I leave this room because we have the impression that our communication is not being circulated, nobody's hearing us, people are not commenting, and it's difficult in a country where we know democracy should reign. I also want to thank the mayor who was here earlier because of the decorum. I was the first to complain the way you were received in Montclair, in a lunchroom with a kitchen in the back and a plastic table. It was not good. I'm sure you deserve that. You don't deserve that. You deserve a setup like this one. And I also want to point to that page over there. The story is not complete. This is exactly what the draft of the ordinance looks like. And we need to write that story. We need to write the story of immigrants right here, because that's going to make the full picture. And these are symbols that I'm pointing to you. Before I started working on immigration, I used to work on prisons and internationally. I've discussed with the people running jails, the head of jails in Canada, in Norway, and in Belgium, in Germany. And they laughed at me when I told them that I was talking about improving jails in America. And so for those who think that the ordinance is going far, you better check the facts. The U.S. government, the U.S. right now, imprisoned 1 million people, more than people who are imprisoned in China. So when we clap and say that we are advanced, we are ahead, we need to go back and look at where we're starting from. And there's no, not other developed country comes close to what the U.S. has done in detention. So when we talk about immigration detention, it's because we come from a very informed place. And I've had meetings with federal officials talking about jails in America. So when I talk about immigration detention, it's because I've seen it. I've seen the worst jails in the world. And it's not about how clean the floor
30
is.
seconds.
It's about the way people are treated. And I want to come down to 2 key things that are missing in the new ordinance. Now, there's a lot of things you have in the list in front of you, but the bylaws, nobody openly talk about the bylaws that has been discussed, kind of, I'm not going to say overtly, but I've heard about Jody, our Essex County executive, talk about the bylaws. But we need to know more. What's going to be in it? Who's going to write that?
Time's up.
We don't know that. And we also need to make sure that the members of the board can call a meeting, even if the executive director is not able to call that meeting. Because as anybody who studies constitutional law, the body is only as strong as the job they do, as the people who are on that board. And so far, I don't see that. Thank you very much.
My name is Kathy O'Leary. I am with Pax Christi, New Jersey. We are a Catholic peace and justice organization. I would like to reiterate that there will be no justice until this contract with ICE is terminated, until all the camps are closed, and until you stop viewing people in your custody as sources of revenue rather than as children of God. I would like to clarify, in case there is any doubt, that any blame for the physical conditions, the pitiful excuse for food service, the denial of medical care, the denial of access to the facility, for legal service providers and clergy, the lack of adequate and reasonable visiting hours, administrative lockdowns, and any other cost-saving measures that resulted in poor conditions within the entire jail fall squarely within the purview and responsibility of the administration and this board. It does not take a PhD in psychology to realize that these choices, these administrative decisions, created feelings of hopelessness and despair among those incarcerated in your jail. It has created or exacerbated mental health conditions of those detained and added to the stress of all those in the facility, including the guards, who are at greater risk because of these conditions. Guards are already at considerably higher risk for stress-related mental health problems and suicides than any other law enforcement officers. This board is many years overdue, at least 8 by my count. You have a responsibility to everyone in your jail, criminal inmates, detainees, and guards. It is long overdue that you take responsibility for the conditions in your jail. I urge you to take these conditions seriously. The history of this board is that it has not always taken the reports of advocates seriously. There are many times when we have come before this board to talk about poor conditions in the jail, only for them to be dismissed as rumors. I urge you to pass this review board, this ordinance, and end the ICE contract. You owe it not just to everyone in your jail, the detainees, the
30
criminal
seconds.
inmates. You also owe it to the guards. Someone mentioned Bennett Zarofsky before. Bennett is a lawyer, and he has a great deal of knowledge about when this jail was moved to what other advocates call chemical corridor. That, and people express concern, not just for the inmates, but for the guards as well, that what would happen if there was a chemical spill there, and how would people be evacuated? That was something that this
Time's
board
up.
and the administration did not take seriously. That is probably something we cannot take back, something we can't start over. But you can do something now for oversight in this board, in this jail, and you can do something to end the ICE contract. Thank you.
Good evening, Freeholders. My name is Whitney Strube. I live in Newark, and I'm the co-chair of the North Jersey Democratic Socialists of America. I support everything Kathy just said, and I support everything Serge from AFSC just said as well. And so I speak in solidarity with those groups that have concerns about the task force as currently written. And I want to offer, as an example of why so many of us have so little faith in this administration, I want to offer the response I got to the question I posed last time, which was simply, is Judge Linares, who's been selected by Joe D. to head this body, a Republican? And here's the answer I got in its entirety. Quote, nominations to the task force will be made on a person's experience, abilities, and professionalism. Their political affiliation is irrelevant. That is a perfect microcosm of the lack of accountability or transparency we are used to receiving from this administration. My question is a legitimate, factual question. With all due respect, I didn't ask Joe D's opinion on whether it was relevant or not. And so, you know, I think it is relevant. Judge Linares has been reported in the press as Joe D's college football buddy and a lifelong Republican. That does not give us a lot of faith in his ability to critically and independently run this body. And it's not irrelevant if he's a Republican. This is the party of racism, misogyny, homophobia, nativism. It's the party of concentration camps, the border wall, child separation. Its leader says the immigrants whose detention The leader of the Republican Party says the immigrants whose detention you profit from come from, quote, shithole nations. And so I think it is relevant if the person who's going to head an autonomous body to investigate conditions is from the party that helped build this nightmare. And so I would like to formally resubmit for the record my question, is Judge Linares a Republican? I'd like an actual answer to that, not evasion. And I'd like to echo Kelly Quirk from Soma Action and Kathy as well in expressing support for somebody like Bennett Zarofsky. I think for those of us who are skeptical of this body as currently written, somebody like Bennett Zarofsky would give us some degree of faith in independence and oversight here. Bennett recently represented on a pro bono basis those of us who were arrested protesting ICE with Never Again Action, as well as the
30
protesters
seconds.
with COSECHA who are protesting for driver's licenses, and has shown himself willing to be an independent voice and not somebody who is a Republican football buddy of Joe D. So I do hope you'll take that seriously, because we have an opportunity in Essex County to really set a precedent for the nation in an actual civilian oversight body with teeth. Don't make it a cheap PR move, because we're all going to see through that. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Katie Singer. I live in Millburn, New Jersey, and I teach at Rutgers North. And I didn't write anything out tonight because I have been sort of saying the same thing. I think last week I said I felt like I was filibustering. I'm really thinking about this in the big picture. I don't know if you guys ever watch tapes of yourselves during these sessions, but people are talking to each other, they're on their cell phones, they're looking up into the air, it is so insulting. You're not doing us a favor by listening to us. This is your job. You signed up for it. It's almost like some of y'all didn't know you were going to have to listen to the public when you took this job. And I'm really tired of the attitude. In my classroom, I wouldn't accept it. And yet here, these grown-ups who supposedly volunteered for this job are looking at us like we're bothering them, and I'm really sick of it. It's so insulting. So I don't know what you guys are doing anymore. I'm not going to even try to ask any more direct questions. My colleague Whit has more energy than I do, because I'm so bored with these letters coming to me that say these bizarre, circuitous answers that I never could have made up. So I do give you an A for creativity, but I have not gotten a single answer to a question. And y'all can make your faces if you want, but I just think that's really unprofessional. I mean, there are, as a professor, there are times where students say things that are inappropriate or we don't believe in or we disagree in, but we don't go, oh, God, I mean, you have some decorum, which of course has been asked that we have decorum by not clapping, and yet this is just the lack of humanity. And maybe this could be the moment, the space where we have humanity, when we have to watch our federal government just in shambles, in horrible, divisive, mean discourse. I mean, I just so admire the mayor of Maplewood coming up here and actually using this position that he has to make statements, to actually speak out. I have not heard anyone, aside from President Gill, say anything about this contract. I have asked over and over again, where do you stand? Do you have a stance?
30 seconds.
I know that there right now is a move to break this contract in a slow manner. But I don't think that's acceptable. It's great that we're going to have a review board, but really not. I'd rather have nothing to have a review board for. I want this contract over. I want it over now. It doesn't matter if it's legal or not. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rabbi Faith Joy Dantowitz from Temple B'nai Abraham in Livingston. I'm a resident of Milburn. I'm also part of Faith in Essex and on the board of Faith in New Jersey. And I agree with much of what has been said this evening. I wanted to just place it in the context of Jewish tradition that this week we're reading in the Torah from Genesis 22. It's the story that we're probably mostly familiar with, the story of the binding of Isaac, when Abraham was asked by God to go and sacrifice his precious son, to offer him as a sacrifice. And Abraham thought that was the right thing to do because he believed in God and he loved God. His faith was so strong. And yet, it was a horrible decision. He almost killed his son. We know at the end he didn't kill his son, but the damage was done, irreparable harm. And as I think about this Torah portion and I think about what's going on in our nation right now, we see near child sacrifice and children who have died at the border because of the ICE contracts. And we're talking about the Essex County Correctional Facility here in Newark, which does not have children in it, yet it's part of ICE. And so we can't separate ourselves. We can't say, well, that's ICE there, that's the immigration issue at the border, that's children there. We're somehow connected to it. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge that and to, as other people have said, to try to figure out a way to end it soon and not say, well, this is a great budget opportunity for Essex County. But I know that it's not going to end tomorrow, and so at the very least, it's really imperative that this oversight board happen and happen soon. When we had a meeting with the county executive this summer, I think it was in July even, it was pretty hot outside and not at all cold like today, we were told that we were hopeful that something would be in place within a couple of months. And so I'm getting a little bit impatient. And I know we have to have more meetings to resolve the language and all of that, but I think each day that the oversight board isn't put in place in a proper manner, that's more people that can suffer. So I want to be mindful of that there are children dying at the border, there are adults, we're all children of God who are suffering all the time. So I just want to raise a few points. I do want to thank you, President Gill, for your constant communication, especially with Jessica Brader from Faith in Essex to let us know the work that's going on. We're eager to work with the freeholders to draft the strongest possible bill to protect the vulnerable community at the jail. We want to know what process will the county use to accept nominations from the community and from advocacy groups, and how will the task force nominations be evaluated? We heard a great talk about that earlier. And will the county executive explain to the public his reason for departing from public nominations if he chooses to do so? And just to draw attention to a few specific parts of the language in the ordinance. In section 6A5, could you please change the provision that the task force may make reports available to the public within 5 business days to the task force must make reports available to the public online within 5 business days. In section 6C, could you also make explicit that annual reports, like other reports, must be made available to the public online? Thank you.
Good evening, freeholders. My name is Jessica Brader. I live in Bloomfield. I'm a member of B'nai Keshet in Montclair, and I'm here representing Faith in Essex and the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance. So I wanted to begin by thanking President Gill in particular for his leadership on the issue of civilian oversight at the Essex County Correctional Facility. I also wanted to say that I know that a lot of work goes on behind the scenes and that there must be some other freeholders who have been involved in working on this, and so I thank your unknown contribution. And I would like to urge those of you who haven't fully participated to engage. That's what your constituents are asking you to do. And I wanted to let you know that we're eager to work with you to draft the strongest possible bill to protect a vulnerable community at the Essex County Correctional Facility. I'm here because as a person of faith, I feel it's my responsibility to protect and stand up for my siblings that are incarcerated and detained at the Essex County Correctional Facility. You know, I have 2 little kids. I'm missing lots of bedtimes. I'm sure you guys are missing things too, but as a citizen of this county and of this country, and as a Jew, I feel I need to be here and ask you to hold yourselves to the highest standards. So I have some questions for the record, a lot of questions. I'll try to go slowly for the note takers. I'll echo the rabbi and ask, what process will the county use to accept nominations from the community and from advocacy groups for the task force? How will task force nominations be evaluated? Will the county executive explain to the public his reason for departing from public nominations if he chooses to do so? I'll also ask that in section 5A, could systemic incidents and concerns be changed to systemic issues and individual incidents to make clear that the task force can review any incident at the Essex County Correctional Facility, regardless of whether it has happened once or is an ongoing problem. I'd also like to ask if the county executive would be willing to have a town hall meeting with constituents. And hi, Mr. Johnson. I haven't received an answer yet to my question last week. Maybe it's because you weren't at the meeting. But I know you mentioned that you're quite busy into the holidays. I think the clergy is as well. And so I'm wondering if you could send us 3 dates and times after the
30
holidays
seconds.
when it would be convenient for you to meet with us. So once again, thank you for your time. I'll just add one more thing. I'm also a professor, and you know, I do give points for participation in my class, and I want to echo what the other professor said, that some of you are not doing very well in the participation grading. But there's room for improvement. We're not at the end of the semester yet. So, you know, as I would say to my class, you know who you are, do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Redwine. I'm here from Essex Rising and from West Orange. And just want to quickly say that West Orange as a town is not supportive of expansion of the zoo. We hope that you do not take another acre from the reservation that I know many people from all different Essex towns use to expand the zoo. But I'm also here to thank President Gill, who has worked so hard on the Civilian Oversight Board and also responds to my emails right away. I'm also a professor, and I would give him an A for participation. So he does a really good job getting back to constituents. And I don't know what kind of support has gone on with the rest of the freeholders, but I would just urge you to support him in this important work. If you have been, thank you. And you know, perhaps we just don't know. If you have not been supportive, please do so. And I am hoping that, speaking of elected representatives, we also elected our county executive. Many of us have missed many bedtimes for our children and have attended these meetings. I know you all spend so much time at these meetings, and I know the county executive is also busy. But I would also request a town hall with the county executive so that he can answer our questions, because sometimes it feels like we spend so much time asking all these questions. You spend a lot of time, particularly President Gill, patiently answering them, and ultimately we don't get to interact with our elected representative, the county executive, on these issues. And at that town hall, I would ask the county executive if he would be willing to accept recommendations from the community to fill any open spots on the task force. And I would also ask that the county executive explain very clearly any reason for anyone he would nominate, and also explain to us very clearly why he would not accept any of our proposed additions to the task force. So I'm really hoping we can have some kind of a town hall with the county executive, because obviously he's a major stakeholder in these decisions. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Carol Schlitt, and I am a resident of West Orange. And like my neighbor Elizabeth, I'm a member of Essex Rising. And like several people here, I am also involved in the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance and in Faith in Essex. So I'm representing those various constituencies. As a Jew and a person of faith and an Essex County resident, I feel very, very strongly about the need to protect the most vulnerable people in our community. The proposed Civilian Oversight Task Force can be an important step in providing meaningful protections to people detained or incarcerated at the Essex County Correctional Facility. I, like many of the people who have spoken before me, want to thank President Gill for your leadership on this issue and for the work you've already done on the Oversight Task Force. We are very eager to work with you and with the other freeholders to draft the best possible and strongest bill to protect the vulnerable people in our community. To that end, we have questions for the record. First, we want to know about the process that the county is going to use to accept nominations from the community and from advocacy groups. We want to know how the task force nominations will be evaluated. What are your criteria? And we want to know if the county executive would explain to the public his reasons for departing from public nominations, if he chooses to do so. We also have specific language with regard to different sections of the bill, and I want to speak simply to the Section 5A, which was already mentioned previously, which has to do with the language of systematic incidents and concerns. We want that changed. We want that language to read systematic issues and individual incidents, so that it's clear to task force members that they can review any incident
30
that
seconds.
happens, regardless of whether it has happened on one time or on a continuing basis. I would just like to add that as a West Orange resident, I too am concerned about the zoo expansion. We do not want to see any more trees killed, and we do not want to see any more land taken from the reservation and from the areas that surround the zoo. We are not interested in expansion of the zoo, even though it's Executive DiVincenzo's very, very big topic. So we want to make that clear as well. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Good evening, freeholders. My name is Bob Zuckerman, and I am one of the newly elected trustees, a member of the Board of Trustees in our neighboring town of South Orange. I know that you were I think you were in South Orange earlier this year, so welcome back to SOMA, or MAPSO, or whatever we're calling it these days. I had the chance to get acquainted with President Gill personally a couple weeks back, and we spoke about a number of issues, open space issues, an idea that a number of us have to bring a new Office of LGBT concerns to Essex County, just like they have in Union County. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, President Gill, on that issue and others. And I want to applaud you and all of you for moving forward on this ICE issue as well, on this task force. I too, speaking personally for me, I want to just say that I would like to see the strongest possible bill. that you can possibly come up with for oversight of this facility, which I and my colleagues had the chance to tour a couple of months ago. Just wanted to also acknowledge Freeholder Seabold, who I've known for many years, so hi, Pat and Deborah Davis-Ford, who I had the opportunity to work with for 5.5 years, your clerk, when I was head of the South Orange Village Center Alliance. I just want to put in another personal, again, I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for myself, on the whole voting ballot issue. I don't know if any of you had a chance or watch John Oliver on HBO. I'm a big fan. 2 weeks ago, he had on the show, he did a whole big segment on voting issues. And unfortunately, New Jersey was right there in the thick of it in terms of bad practices. I know for myself, my own personal experience, 2 weeks ago we had the election. I'm in the voting booth and there's one of the candidates I was looking to vote for. I had to press the button 5 or 6 times to actually get it to light up. That shouldn't have to be the case. I personally support what mostly what you've heard here tonight, the paper ballots with optical scanners. Through my research is actually the best way to go, and to have that paper trail. So I hope that the pilot that you had in Montclair, I hope we can very soon bring that not just to the rest of Montclair, but to the rest of Essex County, because I think we would all benefit from it. So thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Freeholders. My name is Shannon Cunnell. I'm a resident of Maplewood. I'm a resident of Maplewood, and I'm also a member of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education, and I'm also a Maplewood Democratic District Leader for District 1. My disclaimer is I do not speak on behalf of the Board of Education. I only speak as an individual, and of course, I do not speak on any other entity. In that regard, 2 things really quickly I wanted to mention tonight. First, I want to thank President Gill and the rest of the freeholders that are working on this issue to bring civilian oversight. That's a very important issue. But one of the things I did want to just amplify and lift up tonight is the fact that I did not see any youth or student voices here, and I do not, as an adult, want to speak on behalf of student or youth voices. But I do know that there are many youth and students who are concerned about this ICE issue within our county, within our communities, and on a national level. I also know we have many students and many youth who are very scared. They're scared for themselves, they're scared for their families based upon this national climate. We have a wonderful Soma 2 communities here where we embrace all families. We have a large migrant population, we have a large refugee population, and our 2 towns have made declarations declaring our towns as sanctuary cities, and that matters. But outside of our towns and communities, as they go throughout the state and on the United States, I just wanted to put that on your radar. So as you're thinking about these issues around ICE, or you're thinking about these issues on a level that's talking about adults, that impact on youth and students and families as a whole, and I just really wanted to make sure that was mentioned tonight. Secondly, because this week is Transgender Awareness Week, and on November 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is a national day of remembrance where we honor those victims of transgender violence. And I wanted to ask you as freeholders, and also to consider perhaps in the future to also recognize Transgender Day of Remembrance, commonly also called TDOR, as an acronym, and also invite you to our Soma celebration, which will be next Saturday at 4:30. We'll be holding a vigil over in Rickleton Square, and we hope that you'll be able to join us so we can raise awareness around violence, specifically violence around trans women of color and trans persons
30
in general.
seconds.
And another third point is that I wanted to ask for your consideration the fact, as we're going into the 2020 election cycle, the consideration to change our ballots to be more gender neutral. Right now, as a Democratic District Leader, I have to choose between being a Democratic District Leader as a female or a male. I identify as a transgender non-binary individual. My pronouns are they and them. And for me, I have no place on the ballot. And I would like to see Essex County consider to be a champion and a leader, as many have across our country and other places. And New Jersey to really be a leader on this issue. Thank you.
Time's up.
Good evening. I'm Cantor Erica Lippitz of Oheb Shalom Congregation in South Orange, a member of the Interfaith, South Orange Maplewood Interfaith Clergy Association, and also a member of Faith in Essex. And I thank you first of all for taking additional comments and additional improvements tonight to dedicating this evening. Thank you, all of you, and especially you, President Gill, for really harnessing the integrity and the goodwill that fills this room and fills this county. I truly believe that we can erase the shame that came to us with the evaluation of our facilities, shame upon all of us. And it's not so hard to take all the good energy that's here and good ideas and turn this place around and really be a model. Let's be a model of turning it around. We don't have to hide what we did wrong. We can be more powerful in our change if we don't hide it. And this process, in fact, defines us. And in this world, we all know there's nothing we can hide. However we do this, it's going to define our county, define our attractiveness for businesses, for residents. We just got to get this right, and we really can. To that end, and again, in the spirit of all of us chipping in what we can to make things better, I have a particular request in this draft in Section 5A, Item 2. I've asked that the language and provision be changed to read, as a general matter, the task force review and examination shall be fully independent. The task force review and examination shall be fully independent, period. That seems to me to say very clearly what our intention is in establishing this, and it becomes, it further reinforces our desire to show the public that this group has its own integrity. I also would ask the question that has been asked by other colleagues of how
30
can we,
seconds.
thank you, how can we solicit the very best nominations from across this community and from every advocacy group that wants to be a part of it? How could we best solicit those nominations, and what will the process be for the county? And how will these nominations be evaluated? Can we put that in the light of day and really build trust? On a separate note, I simply want to have my
Time's up.
enthusiastic vote for doing a trial of scrambled lights. I live near Ridgewood and South Orange Avenue. I would beg us to consider scrambled lights at every intersection near a school, because the screeching that I hear from the children and from the commuters walking back up that very dark path, that street after from the train, is terrifying. If it doesn't cost us, let's see what we can do. Thank you.
And Donagora. This is my third meeting I'm attending, complaining about Irvington police agents harassing and intimidating me at township meetings. I'd like everyone in this room and everyone who's going to listen to this tape on YouTube to be aware that in Irvington, when I attended the meetings, they asked me, where you going, what meeting you're going to. I complained about this at 2 meetings. The last meeting, one of the officers who was present there was walking in, he said to me, where are you going? I refused to answer him. Held my head straight ahead, I walked in. So it seems as though like we need a password to attend public meetings now. Another complaint I have is at the town meetings now, what they're doing at the council meetings. You have to write your questions out. The meeting starts at 7:30. We have to get our questions written at step by step. They give us 5 minutes to write our questions. If you walk in there late, You cannot speak. You don't have the right. So our freedom of speech is being taken away. You come to this meeting, you walk in, you make a line, and you speak. There's about 5 or 6 people that speak at the meeting, if that much. I don't know why we have to fill out a form. I was told that if you can't get there on time, you have to go to the town hall on Friday, and fill out your questions. But by the time they have that caucus meeting, the agenda can change, and you may not get a chance to speak on your item. So those are some of the ills that we are dealing with in Irvington, and I'd like the public to be aware of it. And when a police officer agent asks me where you're going, that's very disrespectful. That's harassment. That's intimidation. That's bullying. No one should ask me where I'm going. I'm a free man. I'm born free to exist in this cosmic area, in this cosmic air. We all breathe the same air. We all made out of flesh and blood. No one is better than me. I'm not better than anyone. And I refuse to speak to an officer that asks me when I'm coming to a public meeting, where are you going? I will never respond. So my concern and my feelings is no different from the people who are standing up here meeting after meeting and speaking about the ills of ISIS and the existence of ISIS. This system is fake. This system needs to get realistic. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Is this on? Hi, my name is Virginia Lamb Falconer. I live in Maplewood, and I'm here to comment on the proposal for the amphitheater at the Turtleback Zoo in South Mountain Reservation. Seems there was a lot of talk and articles and news about it in the summer, but now there's not really that much information. I did hear that the plan was scaled back, but I just wanted to still speak in opposition to the proposed development because this natural forest is really a vital resource for our densely populated region, and it provides essential passive recreation, environmental services such as stormwater management, wildlife habitat, and carbon storage, which is essential as we address climate change mitigation. And it's really not properly being managed. I don't know how many of you spend any time in the reservation, but there's extensive soil erosion, soil compaction. It's just really a degraded and disrupted environment. And it seems, I don't really know, but it seems to me that the management is really left largely to volunteers. And it's too great of a resource for us to have that be the case. We're really stewards of this forest. It's as Mayor DeLuca said, we're not making new forests anymore. It has the potential to be a great environmental and educational resource. We don't need more places to sit indoors, watch screens, be lectured at, which is what this amphitheater would be. We need active, engaging outdoor learning environments. It's vital to our health. Several recent medical studies have come out and shown that outdoor time is vital to our mental and physical health. In Europe, there are doctors assigning prescriptions for bike services in cities to get people outside. And so just in conclusion, I would like to ask the question about when will the proposed, promised master plan revision be available for review? Because it was originally stated that this amphitheater was in the master plan, and then it was that it wasn't in the master plan, and then it was that there was no master plan. So I think this has not, in my view, been a transparent process. And as I said, this is a really unique and vital natural resource that we have, and we really can't afford to squander it. Thank you very much.
Matt Dragon from West Orange. I'm happy to be able to say that I finally got responses to my questions from October 23rd this week. So thank you to Freeholder President Gill and the Freeholder staff for ensuring that I got responses. I'm sad to say that they're not actually answers. A few, I guess you could call responses, but mostly they're just words. I asked why the chair couldn't be elected by the members. The response was, quote, "The chair of the task force is selected by the county executive with the advice and consent of the freeholders." That's it. That's the whole answer. I asked 2 very specific questions to understand what the legal reading of connections to the county for members was interpreted to mean. The response I got pointed me to Section 3 of the ordinance that I had clearly read and had a question about, and provided no answer or response to my question. I think it's incredibly disrespectful to residents and taxpayers to respond to us like we're misbehaving children. The county executive and his chief of staff don't seem to be taking this ordinance or their job seriously. They seem intent on ignoring their constituents, and when they do respond, it's as if we haven't read the ordinance or bothered to inform ourselves in the slightest. it comes off as extremely condescending. These are Joe D's prisoners, the prison officer's prisoners, your prisoners, our prisoners, my prisoners. After all these meetings and conversations, those of us standing in front of you tonight probably know the ordinance better than Joe D or his chief of staff. I want to thank Freeholder President Gill for being the adult in the room with the administration in this process. Thank you for treating ideas and questions with respect and actually engaging with your constituents, advocacy groups, and subject matter experts. I wanted to read some of the longest response that I got from the administration, and then I will be finished. So I asked for a little leeway on time since they're so long-winded. I think it sums up the fact that they aren't taking the ordinance, the task force, oversight at ECCF, or anyone who's come up to the microphone at these meetings seriously. I'd hope that the rest of the freeholders could impress on Jody and his staff that they need to start joining us in an adult conversation on the ordinance, on task force appointments, and on transparency in general. The question I asked was, why would the task force be given a provision to dissolve itself if the county administration and the freeholders thought a task force was necessary? And at the end of their response, if the task force believes its functions are unnecessary because the ECCF is doing an exemplary job,
30 seconds.
then their formal action of disbanding will provide the community with the confidence that the ECCF is doing a good job. We're all here because we think this task force needs to exist. We don't think the ECCF is doing a good job. And if the task force dissolves, that just puts us right back where we are today, where we can't trust anything the administration tells us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Julie Gindell, and I'm a member of B'nai Keshet. I'm also a resident of Montclair. I'm here with Faith in Essex and the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance. As a person of faith and an Essex County resident, I feel strongly about the need to protect the most vulnerable among us. The Essex County Correctional Facility belongs to all of us. It's not part of, it shouldn't be part of the federal government. This is what's being done with our tax dollars in our name. I'm horrified enough by what the federal government is doing with respect to imprisoning immigrants to this country, but that we're enabling it in Essex County it just breaks my heart. And I would be remiss without mentioning that I feel the contract with ICE should be dissolved. That said, I'm here tonight about the proposed civilian oversight task force, which if we are going to be imprisoning immigrants, or frankly anyone, and we should have had this task force before, and I hope that the task force outlives the ICE contract. I want to thank President Gill for his leadership on this. I would like the freeholders to draft the strongest possible bill to protect the vulnerable community at the Essex County Correctional Facility. In particular, I would ask that the provision at section 685 of the ordinance be changed from the task force may make reports available to the public within 5 business days to the task force must or should make, or excuse me, not should, shall make the reports available to the public online within 5 business days. This is our correctional facility. We are responsible for the people in it, and everyone in Essex should have access to this information. It shouldn't be hidden from us. Thank you.
Setting my own timer because I can't see that one. My name is Rabbi Ariane Weitzman. I'm a rabbi at B'nai Keshet in Montclair, New Jersey, and I'm here representing Faith in Essex, the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance. I was inspired by one of the earlier speakers to share a little bit of a personal story and going a little bit off script from what I had planned tonight. So I have a brother who lives in California who is in jail and has been in jail for many months. This is not the first time as a result of behavior stemming from his mental illness and the resultant drug addiction that he suffers from. And I pray, as many do in this room fervently, that we stop as a country imprisoning people who would like to live here with us. But I think that we need to pass this oversight ordinance, and a stronger one perhaps if we can, not simply for the sake of people who are here under administrative detention, but for anyone who is in any of our jails or our prisons anywhere in this country. Each of them is deserving of our utmost care and concern. So I bring that simply to say this is not just about immigrants, this is about anyone who we decide to incarcerate within Essex County. I want to talk a little bit about roles and responsibility and power and relationships. So I truly believe that the people who work at Essex County Correctional Facility want to do a very good job, but they are in a position of incredible power over other human beings. And we all know that power is corrupting, but power also leads us to do things that we don't believe in doing. This is just the nature of power. The reason why we need oversight is because it's impossible for a person in that kind of position of power to oversee themselves, right? That's just the nature of power. We don't need to make a case for the correctional facility being a bad place. All jails are bad places. It's bad to be incarcerated. I think we understand that. It doesn't have to be an exceptionally bad place in order for us to need oversight. The reason why the oversight board should not disband if ECCF is doing an exemplary job is because there's no such thing as somebody with ultimate power over another person's life being able to oversee themselves. This is something we should all want all the time, no matter how good ECCF is doing. Right? What a great job they're
30
doing.
seconds.
It doesn't matter. They need that oversight. So I have one specific request for the draft. Under Section 3A, it requests that a provision be added which requires the county executive and board of chosen freeholders to accept recommendations from the community before any open slot on the task force is filled. And that this provision also, that was my time, also provide that if the county executive does not accept the community's recommendations when making an appointment, he explain to the public his reason for doing so. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hoffman, and I reside in Verona, and I'm with B'nai Keshet as well. I'm here with Faith in Essex and the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance. As a Jew and an Essex County resident, I feel strongly about the need to protect the most vulnerable among us. The proposed Civilian Oversight Task Force can be an important first step in providing meaningful protections to people detained or incarcerated at Essex County Correctional Facility. Thank you to President Gill for your leadership on this. We are eager to work with the freeholders to draft the strongest possible bill to protect the vulnerable community at ECCF. To that end, I have a few questions for the record. What process will the county use to accept nominations from the community and from advocacy groups? How will the task force nominations be evaluated? Will the county executive explain to the public his reason for departing from public nominations if he chooses to do so? And lastly, could task force membership include an expert in legal issues facing immigrant detainees, a faith leader, and an independent detainee advocate based on the Hudson County model? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Labanqua. I'm an Essex County resident and also a member of PBA 3, Local 382, Essex County Jail. And I would like to say that I applaud you guys for taking your time putting this ordinance together to try to include everyone that's affected by anything that goes on in jail. And it's sad to believe that only one person here acknowledged that the officers are also being hurt by issues that go on, whether it be attacked by inmates, detainees, or anything else, because we matter as well. So I'm only here to speak about the officers. I don't have any idea about contracts, because we don't do contracts. All we are here to do is protect and serve, to keep people safe. whether it be the inmate that just attacked us or the detainee that just attacked us, whether it be gang violence or just the person that passes out. We're only there to do our job. And it's sad that we're caught in between this ordinance, the public, and the administration. So, again, I thank you guys for taking your time. Take a little bit more so we can all be evenly treated right. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Gwendolyn Franklin. I work for Essex County. I haven't spoken in a while because there's so many other pressing issues. I felt that my personal issue could have stayed on the side. But I'm speaking now in reference to my personal issue with the county. I once wrote an article in reference to Attitude Reflects Leadership, and it was published in the Star Ledger and in the local newspaper. And it's true because I want to first thank President Gill for always writing back and responding to anything I write you, and to also Vice President Richardson. I appreciate it. On that note, I came up in reference because of the toxic smell that was at 50 South Clinton, and I kept having asthma attacks. I missed like 8.5 days. So they were kind enough to relocate me to a new location temporarily. They said for 45 days. It wound up being, now it's 5 months. So when I finally said something, because I wasn't feeling well, so I stayed back and didn't say anything. So when I started writing letters, and I CC'd you guys on it, no one ever responded back to me in a letter. No one ever responded back to me in person at all. It's like nothing. So I'm here, so it's on record, that it's twice that I put in a grievance against the county in reference to the first time was when someone tried to shoot me in the head at 50 South Clinton. They relocated me to the Hall of Records. Again, when I was relocated for like 8 months or whatever, they tried to fire me. In that process, I was out for 18 months with no pay. Never got reimbursed. Now I've been moved to 18 Rector Street and missed 8.5 days from the illness of having asthma attacks. I wrote about it. No one, I mean, not one single solitary person of authority have spoke to me about this issue. And I find that they're just setting me up to eventually write a letter and say, you're gone. So my disappointment is that who has a manager's meeting and announce that the person is being
30
relocated
seconds.
to another location, me, and without informing me first. And they did that in reference to the letter that I wrote you guys and sent you a copy of, in reference that all the complications I was having at being relocated from East Orange to Newark. It was an hour more drive. It cost me $80 more in gas a week. And it was, I have not yet learned the traffic pattern.
Time's
so
up.
I was being late for work. So now, we have to walk 3 blocks or whatever. But I feel like, again, I'm being punished, and I feel like I have no one defending me here. So I'm asking you to please, everyone in authority should be able to write a letter and have correspondence, or at least call me in a meeting. I don't bite. Just talk to me. Talk to me like I'm a human being with respect. I respect you guys. Please respect me back. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Case on Little Elizabeth, New Jersey. Before I continue, I just would like to say on the record, thank you to Mayor DeLuca for speaking to the issue on how we were perceived when we had walked into this building. I just checked that those zip ties are still there. We all know that it's a sign of intimidation, and that's disgusting, and I hope that you guys get your acts together and better advise the sheriffs and officers. As I came here and spoke regarding, again, my dear brothers and sisters, as your dear brothers and sisters,
that are being held and that are continuously being detained inside of your correction facility. Why are we not acting promptly on this important matter? Why is it that your county executive, Deportation Joe, is not meeting or not being transparent with the public, his constituents as well? Why is it? Many of your constituents this evening has raised that same concern, and they want an answer. At the end of the day, as elected officials, your job is to govern, serve, represent, and respect your constituents, not mistreat and neglect your constituents. They want to be well served by you. The taxpayers does. They hold you accountable. You don't hold them accountable. As same as our siblings in their correction facility hold you accountable. And they expect you to do the right thing. I've noticed time and time again that those who are personally not affected by something are not as outraged. So let me say this to you as I've said it before. Have a heart generated by love and care and do the right thing. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. I know it's easier said than done, especially when you have to answer to a group of people, you know, who you were selected to do, or your job or your lives depends on it. But put that aside. Put that aside because, again, people's lives and their well-being are at stake. And most importantly, their safety. I know, Madam Clerk, I have 30 seconds left almost. We have to do better, okay, because we cannot afford to lose any more children. We cannot afford to lose anybody else.
30 seconds.
They look to you to do the job that you were governed and that you were elected to do. I hope moving forward that it's a transparent process coming from the county executive office as well as all of you. All of you, because all does mean all, not just President Gale. All of you. This board is an 8 or 9 member board, and he shouldn't have to be doing all the lift work. I thank you again
Time's
for
up.
your concern and your the heart that you have, and also for being there for the people. It's truly appreciated, and it will not be going unnoticed. Thank you.
Rockaway, I'm going to be nice to you tonight. I'm not going to call you complicit. You like that, Leonard, right? I'm not going to, I see a smile finally. He stopped rocking his chair. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I get more with honey, so I'm going to be nice to you. Nobody liked going home last week and telling your families that you were called a Nazi and complicit. Unfortunately, there's still people in this county locked up who don't belong locked up. Today was a historic day. Nobody brought it up, but many of us that already left the audience and many that are here spent the day watching a horrific time in our country. One of the few things that have ever happened in our lifetimes for some of us. I'm older, so I remember it the first time. And it'll be going on for the next several weeks, this impeachment hearing. But what's happened that's made a windfall of money for those of you with smiles on your face and ribbon cuttings behind you and all sorts of things that you were able to do with the $2 million a month based upon the blood money that you got from those people that are detained. That was a GOP move. Yes, people were sent to detention centers during the Obama administration. Yes, it happened before, but never to the extent of what's happening today. You have got to lead this state. Yes, you, Essex County. Be proud of yourselves. You have a nice, diverse board sitting up there. You gave out a lot of NAACP proclamations last month, and I asked you, or 2 weeks ago, the last meeting, I asked you how many of those how many are from white places locked up? I didn't get an answer. I don't think any of the detainees are white. They come from the president's shithole countries. That's who we're locking up. And you're complicit in that still. So I'm not calling you Nazis. History will judge us all poorly. We're living in a horrific time in history. Today was a shambles. It was a scandalous day. It's a sad day in history when we have generals talking about the lies that have been told on behalf of a politician. I know, 35 seconds. I agree with every single person. A lot of it
30 seconds.
A lot of it was redundant. I agree with the answers not becoming forthcoming. I'm furious with Joey D. I'm furious that you, in names, I would have fought for you and got you into office because I thought you were Democrats. I'd like to be able to do that and not regret it. You hold the power in your hands. Let our people go. Let them go now. Be part of the liberation. Set them free. Do
Time's
your
up.
jobs as politicians. Love people. Don't keep them imprisoned for nothing that's not their fault. Thank you.
Good evening. Paula Poles, Essex County resident and taxpayer. Freeholders, I'm here tonight to say thank you for hearing out your constituents. Thank you
Speak
for
in the mic,
attempting to do
please.
the right thing. It is important to say that there's a huge attendance here tonight to talk about the Civilian Review Board. We are all here on our free will for reasons that we feel deeply about and want to support, whether it's professional or personal. However, as I sit in the pews and I heard members of MoMA and many residents of Montclair hand out speeches to people who were written by others to speak into the minutes, I'm sure their family and friends would think that it's admirable, and that on behalf of their family and friends who may be in custody, to hear about the incidents that are so egregious, they want to advocate for the detainees that are in custody. However, who here is here to defend or speak about the victims of the detainees? I guess that's the part that I'm missing, is how do you think that the victims of the detainees feel who in this room or on this Civilian Review Board you speak of and fight for the victims, the crimes committed by the detainees who have illegal immigration statuses, who ensure their rights are met? Who does that? Who ensures that they are treated with dignity and respect? Who makes them whole? What statistics have been taken to see how many of our detainees also have violent crimes, along with undocumented statuses? Have you looked into how many victims and officers have been hurt and affected by detainees in and outside the facility? Who speaks and protects those victims and their families and their kids? As this ordinance is written, it states that there will be an appointed executive director, a member of the detainee advocacy, an inmate advocacy, a criminal defense attorney, social justice advocate, medical, and one from the public. Again, what about the victims of the crimes committed by these undocumented detainees? If we truly want transparency, including all the people on the board who and would be affected by such a, what about a victim advocate? What about a member of each bargaining unit who encompasses the facility to ensure that the U.S. and New Jersey Constitution, the criminal and administrative law, the AG guidelines, case law, prosecutor directives, county ordinances, rules and regs, department general orders, memorandums are all followed by both the victims and the officers that are to ensure the encompasses of this ordinance? And let me end with saying this: every single human being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that there's no one else wishing to speak at this time. Before we move quickly into the rest of the business, just a few quick comments on those who came to speak tonight. First of all, thank you for your continued advocacy and for taking the time to be here and to give us your feedback. I know I can speak on behalf of all the board members. We take that very seriously. Secondly, I appreciate some of the comments made about the work that's been done on this ordinance. I want to be absolutely clear on two specific issues. I have the honor and privilege to lead this board because of the vote of confidence from my colleagues. And one person does not get this type of thing done on his or her own. We are not at this point with this ordinance without the support, input, and work of all of my colleagues here on this board, in particular Vice President Richardson, who has been in many of the meetings to help craft this ordinance, Freeholder Mikado, who has led committee hearings, who has been active on this particular issue. Freeholder Johnson, who for many years has been working on a variety of issues that affect our jail, and Freeholder Graham, Siebold, and Luciano, who have all made it a point to express that they want to see this ordinance passed. So I know that they're capable of speaking up on their own, but I want to be clear that this ordinance is something we want to get done. We are going to get it done, and I believe I can say that it's going to have the full support of this board. I also want to say that the county administration in the crafting of this ordinance has been at the table, and I appreciate that. We need to have a collective solution to this issue. It will not be solved by just one branch of government. If this ordinance is to be done correctly and implemented correctly, it's going to need the full support of the administration. And I want to thank the administration, particularly your counsel, who I see in the office, I see in the audience, who has also been an active part of this process and continues to be so. To the leaders of the PBA who were here tonight and who have reached out and sent some recent communication, I've said this both in our meetings and I will say it on the record. There absolutely was a mistake on my part to not have more early dialogue about what the implication of this ordinance may or may not be on the men and women who work in this facility. And I appreciate the feedback that you have given us. We're going to take that feedback very seriously. It's also one of the reasons that I thought it was important to give the board the time to look at that and to adjourn this to our next meeting, so we can fully evaluate those concerns that have been put on the record. To the other concerns that have been put on the record tonight, I will do, and this board will do our best to respond to each and every individual who came and gave their recommendations on how to strengthen this ordinance. I want to make it clear that I hear you loud and clear that this task force needs to be independent, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to have members of the public that the public can have confidence in. And that is the goal. That is why it is structured actually with very specific categories of individuals who can serve. I think we need to come back to the public, and we will, about how people can submit names, how names can be submitted to our county executive. But ultimately, I want to just be clear on an issue of process. The people that you're going to hold responsible for who serves on this board is not just the county executive and his nominations, but those nominations have to be voted upon by this board. So there was a lot of talk again about the administration, but we also are responsible for that as well. And no one will go on that board without being voted on by this board. That is the way the process works. And in fact, the language that exists in this ordinance calls for and makes it clear that we do not want individuals who have direct ties to the county. It could not be more clear on that. So no one will serve on this board that is directly tied to the county, number one. And number two, I do want to thank our last speaker and the PBA for highlighting that we didn't have someone in one of the categories who represented and we're going to figure this part out, some segment of our officer community, whether it's a retiree or someone from that community. We're going to figure that part out and make that happen. And that was an oversight on our part, and we need to correct that. So I don't want to prolong, because I know many people took time out of their schedules to be here tonight to speak to us. I just want to assure you that this board is hearing you, and this process is taking some time, but I think we're going to end up with a very good product. And when I say it's one of its kind, I don't say that to say that we should hold it up and say, look at Essex County, we're the first in this. I say that to mean that we're doing something that no county that I'm aware of or can find is doing on their own in this, not only in this state, in this country. There is no county or state or municipality unless they are under a court order, which is a total different set of standards, that is taking this type of step to ensure that there is independent, the key word in the task force is independent oversight over this facility. No one is doing that. And the administration, not that I'm saying they need to be given credit for this, but the administration is taking a proactive step here. They are taking a proactive step that they are under no obligation to take. So I'm recognizing that and appreciating that. So ultimately, I think we are going to land with a very, very strong independent citizen oversight task force over our facility. We need it sooner rather than later, and we need to get it up and running. So that really is, for me, and I think this board, the bottom line. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for your continued input on how we can make this the strongest independent citizen oversight task force that we can have. Is there any other freeholder who wanted to make any additional comment? Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have an ordinance or resolution for introduction and first reading?
Mr. President, yes, we have one ordinance.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read ordinance number 1 into the record at a later time. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, are you ready? Mr. Jackson.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. This ordinance is appropriating $1.1 million for the County of Essex for the construction of the Riverbank Park building. As you may recall, it was damaged by fire. We're estimating that the cost is about $1.1 million to reconstruct the building, and that we will be, part of the proceeds will be from an insurance settlement that we have, a little bit over $600,000, and the balance will be coming from capital.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio, any questions?
No addition. I just wanted to be sure that insurance was covering part of this.
Thank you. Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders, do you have any questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a question?
Freeholder Siebel?
Was there a question, Freeholder Siebel?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Moved by Freeholder Mercado. Do I have a second by Vice President Richardson? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel?
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson?
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Mercado?
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano?
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson?
Yes.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for listing purposes only?
Mr. President, we have one ordinance O 2019-00018. Ordinance amending the Essex County District Solid Waste Management Plan.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you can list ordinance O 2019-00018 for public hearing at our December 11th meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinance resolutions on second reading and public hearing tonight?
Mr. President, we have two. The first ordinance is 2019-0016. Should I read the ordinance, Mr. President? Guaranteed ordinance of the County of Essex, New Jersey, securing the Essex County Improvement Authority not to exceed $14 million airport revenue and refunding bond series 2019 for the purpose of providing additional security therefor and determining certain other matters in connection therewith.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's do, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Are we on 2019-00016?
16, yes.
Okay. I hereby declare the public hearing on ordinance 2019-00016 open. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment for or against the ordinance, please come to the microphone, state your name and affiliation for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
This is the airport. Stacy Gregg, this is the airport ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, so I missed the one, number 18, which comes after 16 already, about the solid waste.
So, Ms. Gregg, the one about solid waste, that's just for listing only, so there's no action taken on that. That'll be second reading, public hearing at the next meeting. So that's just being listed. This is just procedural. It's
So
not being
that's
heard.
just 16, and 17 is off.
Right. 16 is the one that's on public hearing right now.
Okay.
The $14 million airport revenue.
So it's 14 million. Could you explain in layman terms exactly what we're funding?
Through you, Mr. President, this is an ordinance to do improvements. There's various improvements that were contained in the ordinance itself on improvements to the airport itself, in addition to construction of hangars as well to expand the operation. But of the 14 million, I think roughly about $8 million, between $7 or $8 million, is a refunding of existing debt. So it's not all new debt. About half of it is to refund older debt at a lower interest rate.
I apologize because I haven't read the ordinance and the nitty-gritty, but I just want to put it out there, if not for this particular funding, but for something else. Upon driving, unfortunately, I've had quite a lot of experience driving past the airport as I've been protesting at the Union County Elizabeth Detention Center, so I'm there quite often. Along the side of the road for the airport are all the Uber and Lyft drivers that are parked. I was hoping for the airport to eventually grow with 2020 coming up, where those poor people would not have to be, there. So if in the money, if there was some sort of building going on to facilitate those cars.
I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is actually for the fair. I believe the Fairfield.
It's the county airport.
The county airport, not Newark Airport.
All right, apologies. I saw airport and just wanted to make sure, and I might as well, since I'm up here, finish it. You heard my concern for future planning in Essex. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, that would be Union though, right? Newark Airport?
It's Port Authority owned.
So it's not you anyway. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. McInerney, additional questions or comments?
On the 14 million, Mr. President?
On 29, we're moving through 2019.
I'm fine with that.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Freeholder, is there any additional questions or comments? Do I have a mover and a second?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Sewell, second by Vice President Richardson. Do I have the same mover and second to approve the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham. Yes. Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Luciano. Yes. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Sewell.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, moving to ordinance O 2019-00017. This is the public hearing that we're now adjourning from the November 6th, 2019 meeting. I think we're good. Yeah. Again, as stated, in order to consider all the public comments stated on the public record and correspondence that this board has received, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing to the December 11th meeting. Moved by Vice President Richards, second by Freeholder Siebold. Freeholders, do you have any any additional questions or comments before we take the roll? No? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sewell.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
And Mr. President, if I could just add that public hearing is adjourned to the next meeting of the Board of Freeholders, which will be held on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019 at 7 p.m. The Essex County Hall of Records, room 506, 465 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Newark.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parlavecchio. Moving to resolution number 1, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, this is a resolution dealing with some transfers of dollars as we typically do at the end of the year. It's $1.5 million being transferred from some accounts to some other accounts, which are listed in the backup for this that you have, primarily going from salary and wages to additional dollars that we need for workers' comp, some additional expenses for the prosecutor's office, and snow removal expense for the Department of Parks.
Thank you.
Ms. McInerney, anything else?
No, that's fine.
Ms. McInerney, Freeholders, questions or comments? Do I have a motion and a second? So moved. Moved by Freeholder Mercado, second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Moving, we're going to take resolutions now number 2 and number 5, which are from the Office of the County Administrator. Mr. Jackson, resolution number 2.
Number 2, Mr. President, is a excuse me, extension of a contract, 24-month contract extension with Princeton Public Affairs Group to provide for consulting services, governmental affairs consulting, and Mr. Pasquale is here to address this item.
Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is William J. Pasquale III. I'm the principal in Princeton Public Affairs Group. Freeholder President, Vice President, members of the board, members of the administration, particularly the administrator, and the county council. It's been an absolute pleasure to represent this county, which I am a resident of. 8 Baldwin Court, Roseland, New Jersey. Voted in my first primary and general election this year. In the great county of Essex. For 32 of the last 33 years, my firm has represented this county. From Nick Amato, I believe, to County Executive D'Alessio, Treffinger, and now DiVincenzo. And it's been our pleasure to represent you in government affairs through the County of Essex with the relations with the state of New Jersey. And Mr. President, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't want to prolong or protract, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have or make any presentation you wish.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pasquale, and thank you for taking the time to be here. We have a practice of not requiring contracts that are under $100,000 to appear before the board, but because of I really believe the unique service that you do provide to the county, and some of the issues that both the administrator and I had a chance to discuss, I thought it was great and appropriate for you to take a few times. So I really appreciate that. I just wanted to say to my fellow members of the board that the representation given by Mr. Pasquale and Princeton Public Affairs goes across many issues that the county deals with the state. And we don't always have the opportunity to hear, and that's not a criticism of anyone, about the work that you do on behalf of our county with the state, but I know that it's been extremely helpful over a variety of issues. And since the contract's a 2-year contract, again, wanted to get an opportunity just to thank you publicly for that work that you've been doing. So thank you, and I'll with that, Mr. Parlavecchio.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders, any additional questions or comments? Vice President Richardson.
Through you, Mr. President. So explain some of this work that you do, because I don't think the freeholders on this board actually know what it is exactly that you do. You say you represent us how? In what capacity?
Sure, Vice President, through you, Mr. President, to the board. This is a very modest contract. It is Government Affairs Services, so we represent the County of Essex before the state of New Jersey in collaboration with your very distinguished and capable legislative delegation, the members of the Senate and the Assembly. We represent you before the administration, regulatory bodies, and the state legislature. And if I may, Mr. President, I'll just give a couple of examples of that over the course of the last couple of years. Typically, Freeholder, Vice President, this is a one-year contract. It was just changed, I believe, 3 years ago to a multi-year contract. And we appreciate the administration having confidence in giving us a 2-year contract. So, for example, and I'm just picking out in no order of priority, more recent examples. S-477, which is the statute of limitations bill sponsored by Senator Vitale, which changed the statutory statute of limitations for issues concerning primarily the Catholic Church. It had unintended consequences and impacts to the county and municipal governments, not just Essex County. We were able to work with your county council, your administrator, and members of the executive branch to carve out amendments that would not impact negatively or deleteriously the county of Essex or any counties or municipalities. That was signed into law by Governor Murphy earlier this year, which had a positive impact on the county. We've done significant work. Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, could you explain to the members of this board exactly how would it have negatively impacted the county?
Well, prior to this bill passing, there was a 2-year statute of limitations for tortious acts concerning child molestation, issues of that nature. And because of the broad reach of the legislation, it would have allowed for a significant amount of tortious claims to be filed against the county.
Wait a minute, so there would have been claims filed against the county?
Could have been.
Could have been because of something that happened at a Catholic church?
No.
So, yeah, explain, because you mentioned the church.
That was the intended consequence of the legislation, to go back and allow for those young children and their families who've been impacted. And I brought this up because I thought it was a positive impact, but so you're very well aware, Freeholder Vice President, through you, Mr. President, of the inordinate amount of issues concerning pedophilia by the Catholic Church. This legislation would take the 2-year statute of limitations and remove it, and that would have impacted not only the Catholic Church because of the broad brush of the legislation, but counties and municipalities.
How so? And that's what I want you to explain. How did you stop that from happening?
We amended the bill not to include counties and municipalities. Yeah, thank you, County Council. It's not just pedophilia, but it's sexual abuse and issues of that nature. So right now, the county and all counties and all municipalities are impacted with the current 2-year statute of limitations. If we did not secure that amendment, counties across the state and municipalities would have been impacted by that. And this county took a leadership role in making sure that our firm was engaged to amend that law, and we did successfully.
So to amend the law, so the law would have taken the statute of limitations from 2 years and opened it up to, let's say,
Correct.
10 years.
Correct.
So what you did was limited folks who may have been impacted by pedophilia
or sexual harassment.
Or sexual harassment.
Thank you.
So you limited their ability to have recourse.
Yeah,
civil lawsuit. So that's essentially what you did.
Yes, sir.
You got any more explanations? Any more examples?
Sure. We have done significant work on environmental remediation practices. We assisted the administration with efforts. That was a significant undertaking that the administration took in collaboration with the legislature and Governor Murphy for the $120 million loan to the city of Newark for lead service line replacements to expedite that replacement process. In addition, we worked with the Murphy administration and the legislature to provide for the $8 million to assist counties, jails for treatment of opioid addiction problems. We worked with the county, along with the Murphy administration and the legislature, on filtration testing results for the Pequannock water area. We also assisted the county during the course of this contract in the past 3 years with the budgetary process at the state. In addition to that, the Rahway River Flood Risk Management Feasibility Study and the Rahway River Flood Control Project we've been working with the administration on. In addition to that, we monitor over 100 bills in both houses of the legislature. I just brought those items up, and I apologize if I picked S477, but I thought that was an important example of the leadership of this administration, the county, the Freeholder Board, to make sure that the county was protected from that statute of limitation repeal.
Just, I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President.
I'm done.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I think this is clear, but I think it's important just to note on the record too that, particularly that particular bill, that sometimes the county, because I've experienced this in my dealings with NJAC, that sometimes there is positions taken by counties that may be different than where individual members of our body may be on a particular issue. And I understood that issue to be largely about one of liability and cost for counties and county government. I'm not opining one way or the other, but from a pure dollars and cents standpoint and the potential liability that the county may have incurred, multiple county governments, and I believe NJAC also took a very strong position on this bill, which quite frankly I have to say was something that I wrestled with as the leadership of NJAC, but it ultimately this contract and the scope of this contract is, I believe, for Mr. Pasquarello to take the position that the county took on this issue. So.
Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. President, just to add to your points, and your point is well taken that it is essentially looking at the liability and exposure and protecting county tax dollars as it relates to those kinds of lawsuits. It becomes difficult when there's an unlimited statute of limitations with regard to sexual abuse or sexual harassment cases. If a claim is brought from 25 years ago, it becomes impossible for a public entity to defend those kinds of cases. The individuals involved are no longer working for the county. The supervisors are no longer working for the county. The documents no longer exist. There's no longer evidence available to defend those kinds of cases. There's been a slew of municipalities at counties, state governments that have literally had to pay out millions and millions of dollars in settlements as a result of an unlimited statute of limitations in sexual assault and sexual harassment cases. So to Mr. Pasquale's point, on behalf of a public government, it is financially responsible for us to advocate for there to be some type of limitation for us to be able to adequately address claims that are brought against the county.
Freeholders, any additional questions or comments?
I'll move
I
it.
think.
I'll move it.
Okay. Got two movers here, Johnson and Seabold. Okay. Freeholder Seabold, second by Freeholder Luciano.
I didn't hear you move it.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Moving to resolution number 5, we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
If I may, Mr. President, I just want to put on the record that we are withdrawing number 3 because the ordinance creating the civilian task force was adjourned, the hearing. So without a task force, there's no one to appoint. So until that time, we'll be withdrawing resolution number 3.
Okay, thank you. I know number 4 has also been withdrawn, so we can move
And
to
number 4
5.
is, yes. And number 4, we are withdrawing, if I may, too, Mr. President, on that one, we have paperwork out with the University of Minnesota. We're hoping to get that back within the next day or so and have it on the agenda for the 11th.
Okay, thank you. What's your hope? I'm sorry.
Number 5.
I just wanted to go back to 4. So 4 is the disparity study, so you're hoping to get that?
For the 11th, yes.
For the 11th, okay. Number 5, which I think we've already said we can read into the record at a later time. So, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Walker is here to address this item with the vendor, Mr. President.
Good evening, President and Freeholder Board. Tim Walker, Director of Risk Management for the county. With me is Larry Barnes from the brokerage firm of Massey & Massey. They are the county's current broker for both our crime and our pollution policies. We are seeking approval to invoke a 2-year option to keep them aboard as broker.
Mr. Parlavecchio.
Just as Mr. Walker said, this is a 2-year option. The original contract was 3 years, so this will take us to the end of the 5-year maximum on the contract before it needs to be, not rebid, but before it needs to be re-advertised.
Yes.
Mr. McInerney?
And I think, Mr. President, it was established at the leadership meeting that the brokerage fees are paid by
Yes,
the
they are
insurance
paid as
carrier.
part of the premium. Mr. Barnes is here to discuss the amount of that commission, if you'd like.
As Mr. Walker indicated, my name is Larry Barnes. I'm the account executive with the Massey Insurance Agency. And based upon the particular policy premiums, we get, the Mass Agency is paid a commission percentage from each individual company. And that can be anywhere from 10 to 15%.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McInerney. Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Do I have a mover and second?
Move it.
Moved by Vice
Second.
President Richardson, second by Vice President, moved by Vice President Richardson, second by Freeholder Johnson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Moving to resolutions number 6 through number 10, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson. number
Thank you,
6.
Mr. President. Mr. Mahmood is here to address these items.
Was that number 5?
Good evening. My name is Asif Mehmood from Essex County Department of Public Works. I'm a principal engineer at the Verona office. Today we have items 6 through 10, and item number 6 is insertion of revenue for the intersection of Main Street and Scotland Road for the traffic signal and roadway improvement. That's a grant we got from NJDOT through FHWA. So that's an insertion of revenue at this time. And item number 7 is the RFP for Paulus Oculus and Sorter for $64,998 to upgrade the boiler in 50 South Clinton Avenue. Item number 8 is the bridge rehab scoring on 10 locations.
Yeah, I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble hearing.
Thank you.
So item number 8 is the application that the Department of Public Works submitted to the NJDOT for 10 locations for the bridge rehab. And item number 9, that's an insertion of revenue for roads resurfacing on some of the locations in along county roads. If the freeholders are interested, I can briefly describe the locations. And item number 10 is the rehab and restore the fence, also install new fence for the Weequahic Park along Elizabeth and Meeker Avenue at this time. And I have contractor who is the lowest bidder. He is Dave Friesen from Dave's Architectural Iron Works. So if freeholders has any question, he can also answer.
So we'll do number 6 through 10. Mr. Parlavecchio?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions, Mr. President.
Freeholders, no, gotcha. Freeholders 6 through, freeholders 6, I do listen to you. Sorry, I apologize, I heard you. Freeholder, actually here is really good on this side from all the time we spend together. Freeholders, questions or comments? We do have the vendor here for, I believe, number 10. Vice President Richardson, if it wasn't 10 o'clock at night, we might jump up and celebrate.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're not showing more enthusiasm for number 10, but I think many of us are real happy to see number 10 on the
Absolutely,
agenda.
something we've been advocating for quite some time. So just tell us a little bit about your company, where you're located, and do you have any Essex County residents who you employ?
Good evening. We're located in Patterson, New Jersey. It's where our shop is. We don't have at this moment no Essex County employees, but if we need additional help, we know we would employ them.
So you don't know at this point whether or not you're going to need any additional help?
Not yet.
When will you know?
Well, if the weather is good, we won't need it, you know.
Right. So that statement you just made, whether if we need additional help, we'll employ. You already know you're not going to need any additional help. That's what you just said.
I'm very sure we're going to need additional help.
Right. You're pretty sure you won't.
I will.
You will.
Yes.
Okay. So make sure you leave your card, your contact information, so when you need that help, make sure you reach out, and we'll make sure we get you some Essex County residents to help you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, please state your name for the record.
David Friesen.
Thank you.
Just number 6 is insertion, so we'll be back before the board, or did we I lost track, Mr. Jackson. Is this,
That's
did
correct.
we already vote on the contracts here? So we've already voted on those contracts.
That's correct. I mean,
Okay.
the contractor contract has been awarded but not recommended to the freeholder for approval, and we are waiting some paperwork, and also construction inspection will be part of this insertion of revenue also. That is still in progress.
Okay. Yep, Vice President Richard.
Just one last question. When do you plan to get started with the fence, and how long is it going to take?
Plan to start in November 20th, but 90 days.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Number 6 through 10? Mover?
Move it.
Moved by Vice President Richards and second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk. Resolution 6 through 10.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Sebo. Yes. Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Ricardo.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano. Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 11, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Zates.
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Resolution number 11 is a contract to purchase 4 2024 transit vans under the state contract from Bayer Ford. These are replacing 4 of the older vehicles in the park system, specifically a 2000 Dodge van, a 1999 GMC van, a 2001 Ford Taurus station wagon, and a 2005 Chevy van. And the new vans will primarily be used for our trades crew, which includes electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and other maintenance repair.
Sir Parlavecchio.
Josh, semi-related question. The old vans that are being replaced, are they being retired or auctioned off or put in service somewhere?
Through you, Mr. President, I know they will be retired from the park system. I'm not sure what happens to them after that.
They sound fairly old.
Ms. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders.
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Siebel.
Second.
Second by Freeholder Mercado. I'm sorry, Vice President Richard, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Luciano. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Just make sure you check with Freeholder Pomares on the old parts and the ones that we're getting rid of. Moving to resolution number 12. You can read it into the record at a later time.
Mr. Del Gaudio is here for this one, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Frank Delgaudio, Director, Essex County Hospital Center. Resolution 12 is a 2-year contract with Hudson Community Enterprises for housekeeping services for the hospital center. This is through a bid exemption utilizing a sheltered workshop. The services include 24/7 coverage, 365 days per year. It also includes snow removal from all walkways. So it's a very large contract for us, and we've been very pleased with the performance over the last 10 years with this contract. And we do have individuals from the firm that could address this in further detail about staffing and the level of service.
Thank you. My name is Joe Brown. I'm the president of Hudson Community Enterprises. We also have Jim Petroselli, who's here, who's the head of our building services, who's a resident of Springfield. We're a private nonprofit agency. that provides job opportunities for people with disabilities. Our model is to run social enterprise businesses. We have 5. One of them is our building maintenance business, and that's the one that really takes care of Essex County Hospital. I know you've been very happy with it the last 10 years, and we're very grateful for the opportunity. I've brought some additional information for the freeholders so they know about our activities in Essex County, the number of people that are, the number of Essex County residents that are employed, the number that are served in Essex County, and also so if any of your constituents at any time with disabilities have employment issues that they'd like some help with, we'd be very happy to help them.
Thank you. Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders. Questions or comments? Vice President Richardson.
Through you, Mr. President. So what were those numbers of Essex County residents?
Let's see. We employ 112 Essex County residents. The payroll is about $2 million a year. We serve about 330 people in Essex County. Not only do we have a work site at Essex County Hospital, but we have a work site, a couple work sites in Newark. We do all the scanning work for the Department of Consumer Affairs. We do the scanning work for the Victims of Crime Compensation Bureau. We have a shredding business that provides some shredding to some county institutions where people with disabilities are employed. Also, we're about to embark on a program with JFK School in Newark to provide a vocational experience for kids with disabilities. So any of the freeholders that are from Newark, I know they'll be happy to hear about that. It's a wonderful school that we're going to be able to do some work with. And all that information's in here for you.
Excellent. We need to get you some more work so you can
Yes, you do, freeholder. Thank you.
so you can make up for all these other folks who don't have any Essex County residents employed.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Moved by Freeholder Mercado, second by Vice President Richardson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebo.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares. Absent. Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper. Absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Moving to resolution number 13.
Thank
Mr.
you very
Jackson.
much.
You can read into the record at a later time.
20 through the end? No, we're not 20.
Good evening.
Good evening, freeholders. Julius Mond Ford, Division Director, Essex County Division of Training and Employment. What you have before you is the New Jersey grant to operate the Job Access for Reverse Commute Transportation Program. This program connects Essex County employees to employers where New Jersey Transit stops running. It is a matching grant, so as the county, we are required to match the $737,000. When we come back before you, that $737,000 will not be the full requirement of the county operating budget. We will look at different grants that we're allowed to use to match the funding. Any questions?
Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders.
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Sebo. Second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper. Absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson. Yes. Freeholder Luciano. Yes. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares. Absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson. Yes. Freeholder Sebo.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Moving to resolution number 14. Mr. Jackson. which will
Mr.
be
Hunt.
record at a later time.
Carl Hunt, Chief Information Officer. This $122,000 is for computer hardware and software for correction center to support and change equipment that has been 15 to 18 years old.
Mr. Parlavecchia. Yeah. No questions. We good. Why don't we just make it an even 20 while we're at it? Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders. The mover.
Move it.
Moved by Vice President Richardson, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Famares. Absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper. Absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Moving to resolution number 15.
Mr. President, Director Ortiz and his team are here to address this item.
Thank you.
Good evening. President Gill and
I'm
Freeholders.
sorry, this is Warden Anderson. I thought Mr. Ortiz was here.
I lost a lot of weight.
You're better looking, too, by the way.
State your name for the record, please, and your association.
Good evening. My name is William Anderson. I'm the warden, one of the wardens at Essex County Correctional Facility. As you know, there's an opioid crisis, and we have learned that a large number of the people who come through our facility, to be more exact, about 250 we estimate per month, could use some help, and they already are showing, they have tested to be positive for opioid use. And so what we've done is the Department of Human Services and Mental Health and Addiction Services has come up with a grant which we have written for and received, and we'd like to make the insertion so that we can begin to treat some of these folks. I have with me Dr. Anisette, who could provide some of the more technical information, but I do have a general idea of how we're going to do this and how we've laid it out. So if you, I guess, questions.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a long day, but hello, hi. I'm a Freeholders. It's my pleasure. I'm Dr. Anisette, Medical Director for Essex County, working alongside Warden Anderson and Ortiz.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me better now? Okay. All right. And it is definitely my distinct pleasure to say that we've come here before to talk about the medical needs of the inmates and the citizens that are being incarcerated in our facility. And one of the issues that has presented itself over and over again is the dire need to address the issue of substance use disorder. We estimate on a given month that we're basically treating between 250 to 300 patients that come in suffering from at least addiction to one substance or more, but at least one. And so there's a high incidence of opiate addiction. We have a number of pregnant females that are coming in that are opiate dependent. And right now, our current strategy up to this point has been to perform detoxification. So we are currently the largest, Essex County Correctional Facility is definitely the largest detox center, detoxing over 200 people every month. And so at this point, with the leadership, basically spurring us on, we've decided to take it to another level. So instead of only detoxing, which provides some level of care, but the complete level of care is what is commonly known as MAT, medication-assisted treatment, which is a combination of certain treatment modalities which involve pharmaceuticals along with counseling. So with this initiative, which is sponsored by the state, we're going to be able to bring in program coordinators, discharge planners, bring in a lot of community providers that we've worked with in the past, but now bring them and integrate them into our treatment management right from the intake. So as these folks come in, we'll be able to do drug screenings, we'll be able to place them to on the appropriate medications, and then also schedule them for counseling sessions that will start and be initiated in the jail, and then create a linkage so that we can have a warm handoff to the community providers. The warden hosted a meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had over 40 participants representing roughly 8 community providers that you're probably familiar with within the city and within the county of Essex. We had Cedar Grove and Irvington, a number of groups that came out, and so they all expressed they were very enthusiastic and basically demonstrated that they want to partner with us and set up MOUs so they can establish linkages to care for their patients that are coming into the jail.
So I don't want you to take this wrong. While we appreciate something being done about this recent opioid crisis is long overdue. It's been a crisis in the black and brown communities for 50 years, but it was locked them up. So I'm happy to see that there's some treatment that's going on now, some money towards treatment and rectifying this. But my question is, will the immigration detainees be integrated into this? Because I'm sure some of them are coming in with addictions and issues as well. So will they be treated?
Absolutely, Freeholder. When we introduce programs such as this, and it applies across the board, we try to make it so that it's accessible to all the different populations. So we will not have it accessible only to county or state. It'll be accessible to include the immigration patients. We definitely pride ourselves in doing that. So every program we bring in is applicable to all populations, and there is a high level of addiction within that population, especially alcoholism.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Moved by Freeholder Mercado. Second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebo.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 16, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Director Brown is here, and his team are here for 16 and 17.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good evening, Mr. President.
My name is Maurice Brown.
Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry, before Mr. Brown says, I'm going to make a special request. It seems like for whatever reasons that are, however these agendas get put together, that Mr. Brown is always at the end of the agenda. So can we figure something out between
just change it next time.
between whoever has the responsibility to do that, so Mr. Brown could actually, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. You want a good streak here.
He has patience.
Maurice Brown, Director for the Division of Community Action, which leads to the next items fall under, and also Interim Director for Senior Services. This resolution 16 has to do with HOPWA, which is the Housing Opportunity Program for people with AIDS. There's a grant from the City of Newark that we get, and this is $377,628 beginning from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. And this helps with subsidizing rental assistance, legal assistance, different types of assistance that people may need. And it also is to those that are 30% below the median area income. And there are 36 people, I believe, right now in the program.
Mr. Brown, thank you. No questions. Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholder? Additional questions or comments?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Sebo. Oh, I'm sorry. Freeholder, second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, Absent. Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes, thank you.
So moved.
Moving to Resolution 17, we can read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Brown.
17 is from the Community Development Block Grant that we get from the Housing Department for $91,200, and this is for tenant resource. While we're not attorneys, we do provide some type of assistance to folks that come in, but this can go to tenants and to landlords. And it's suggestions, again, not advice, but suggestions or pamphlets or information that we may give to help either one. And that's what this, but mostly, to be honest with you, it's tenants that come in and need our help.
Mr. Palavecchio? No questions. Ms. McInerney?
No question.
Freeholders?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Siebel, second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. and
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good evening. Moving to Resolutions 18 and 19, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Coltrane.
Mr. President, both these are on the law public safety insertion, and the first one is with an archive task force for $292,826, is paying 55.67% of the free detective salary and fringe benefits. The second one is for overtime for an homicide task force, which is $33,733 for overtime.
Mr. Palavecchio?
No questions.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Taking 18 and 19 freeholders, which are budget insertions. Do I have a mover and a second?
Move it.
Moved by Freeholder Graham.
Second.
Second by Vice President Richardson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson. Yes. Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
President, no vote.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson. Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved. Mr. President, I have
Yes.
a question.
Yes.
President, I'm voting on both 18 and 19?
18, 19, yes. Both
Thank you.
Office of the Attorney General, both of them.
Okay.
Okay. Moving to Resolutions 20 and 21, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Coltrane.
Mr. President, number 20 is a director budget insertion for $6,007. These were conducted in the prior year, so we need to do a budget insertion in that particular. 21 is the county budget insertion for Highland Revenue, New Jersey Department of Education and Services for $25,965. And this is a corrected budget insertion on prior year.
Mr. Palavecchio? No question. Ms. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders? Mover?
Move it.
Moved by Freeholder
Second.
Graham. Second by Vice President Richardson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano. Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Moving to Resolution number 22. Memoriam. Can move it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Sorry, who moved?
I did, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
President Gill moved and second by Vice President Richardson. And, Mr. President, will we read this into the record at a later time?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Roll call. Thank you.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano. Yes. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares. Absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson. Yes. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper. Absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay.
I know, I wasn't sure.
Got me twice. So you got to mark me twice. Double yes.
It's only if I said no. Reports of board committees. Legislative reports. Written communication. Unfinished business. New business. Public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any matter, please come to the microphone, state your name, address, and affiliation for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Matt Dragon, West Orange, requesting on-the-record responses to these questions about the task force ordinance. What is the nomination process, and why can't that be codified into the ordinance to solidify it and make it public? Given that I am aware of the existence of and have read Section 3, does the county and/or its legal representatives believe that the language as written would keep Essex County municipal politicians or leadership from serving on the task force? What about leadership or board members of nonprofits with county grants or providing services to the county? Given the administration's interpretation of the ordinance, would it keep those people from serving? Given that I am aware of and have read the section laying out appointments and the definition of advice and consent, what keeps the task force members from electing their own chair? Was that considered? If not, why not? If so, why was it not selected? Since the representative has spoken at several of these meetings, have the sheriff officers PBA explained to the administration why they're so worried about oversight at the jail? As far as I can tell, those officers have their own union representing them, so I'm not sure why the sheriff's PBA is speaking out against this ordinance. Are their concerns being entertained in discussions about the task force? If so, can the administration please explain how jail oversight will impact officers that don't work in the jail that will be overseen, and why they would need a seat at the table? Thank you.
Stacy Gregg, Rockaway. Okay, I left off talking about love, and I want to remind you of the holidays coming up. You didn't just do that, did you? You didn't do that, did you? Okay, it looked like you did something like the president. So the holidays are coming up, and testimony was given that the majority of the people do have relatives in New Jersey that greet them. You voted for money to go for 3 days when they get out, if they don't have a place to go, right? You had a vote on that last time. So thank you for doing that. But you acknowledge, I'm glad you're paying attention. I never got an answer on how many of you actually went and visited the places in Newark that stink, which is why I was waiting for the sewage bill to come up. I'd like to hear what your reports are on that for the employees who work there year after year after year, besides the detainees who have been there over a year. That stench is awful. But I'd like it reported on how many people are let out a month from the ICE program. The holidays are coming up. They deserve to be home with their families. I'd like to have an investigation and find out exactly, unless somebody here wants to fess up, who asked the Sheriff's Department who to show up tonight with intimidation. That was uncalled for. I'm usually using your Freeholder meeting as an example of how you do discuss things and you don't work on intimidation. I come from a county of true Republicans across the board of Morris County, and I do go to their meetings. I'm not there tonight because I'm here with you guys, but they end their meetings in 30 minutes. It's total non-transparency and corrupt, in the way that they handle it. I was asked who I voted for. I was informed that the guy up front, Cabana, didn't vote for the governor. He asked me who I voted for, which is entirely improper. But one thing he never did was have intimidation like you've had here tonight. That was something of the caliber of Dodd from Dover, who just got voted out with intimidation and removing people from his board by police escorts, there is a lawsuit coming up with that. Talking about the judge that was handpicked and a friend of, switching topics now, the judge that was picked is very easy on bribery. He gave a very light sentence because letters were written from ex-governors and other
30
people.
seconds.
Because he was a privileged person, so he got a very light sentence. So if you Google his name, you will see that the people in the courtroom when it was handed down were appalled at the ruling that he gave to that person who had bribery for the planes. He used the plane for his own personal service, and I think it was the same judge that gave that ruling. He wasn't a judge for very many years. But regardless, it's not independent. It needs to be independent, and it's the responsible thing to do.
Time's up.
Is to close the camps, let these people out, and report it to us how many are out every month. We'd like to hear that these people are going home. Everybody deserves to go home.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that there's no one else wishing to speak at this time. Freeholder comments. Freeholders, do you have any comments you would like to make? Vice President Richardson.
Yes, I have a handout here. I was fortunate enough to attend a symposium down in Florida, and it was about Large Urban Community Caucus Symposium, and it was one of the best run conferences that I've ever attended. The information was high level. They had experts come in, talk about homeless. They talked about preparedness, like if the grid goes out, what's the county's process. And it was folks from all over the country, man. It was just incredible. So I just want to thank the board and the administration and the president for allowing me to go and represent you down in Florida. I got some more information that's coming from some of the experts, some of the things they did to almost eradicate homelessness in Miami. They had 8,000 homeless folks. They got it down to 1,000. They've taken dedicated money that can only be used for homeless issues, and instead of incarcerating homeless folks who may have a mental health issue, they send them to a mental health facility. If you have a drug addiction, they make sure that you get all the care that you need. But they've really figured out how to address the homeless population and the needs that they have. And at some point, through some more correspondence, I'd love to get some of those folks up here to talk to us about what they do and how they've done it and how they've gotten the money together to have dedicated services for those folks. So thanks again for allowing me to go.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to taking a look. Thank you, Vice President Richardson. Freeholders, any additional comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Thanks. Meeting adjourned.